Chapter 2600. The ancient well was filled with mist, and an illusory old Taoist sat cross-legged, chanting sutras. The Tai sword was stabbed into the side of the ancient well, and the blade was stained with blood. This was an extremely strange scene, and ordinary cultivators were utterly unable to witness it, because in the past, so long as anyone approached this area of the restricted area, then practically no one would be able to survive. However, at this moment, the fourth successor of Mount Innerheart, Ling Xuanzi, had arrived. Boom! The ground was shaking and the void was collapsing. Ling Xuanzi's eyes were like a pair of torches, burning with a terrifying light as he looked at the old Taoist. "Just now, you were the one who screamed non-stop?" he asked expressionlessly. The old Taoist's body was covered in a rain of light, and his appearance was blurry. Facing Ling Xuanzi's question, he could not help but say indifferently, "It's been a long time since someone dared to speak to me like this. Young man, you better watch your words. If you really think that you can do whatever you want just because you have the power to transcend the progenitor realm, you'll only be a laughingstock." Back in the previous era, he had been suppressed here for 1,000,000 years. In this extremely long period of time, he had seen many powerhouses who had transcended the progenitor realm come here. But in the end, otherwise, they would flee in panic like a stray dog. Otherwise, he would die right here. He had never taken any of them seriously. Laughing stock? Hearing this, a bright smile appeared on Ling Xuanzi's handsome face, and then, he rolled up his sleeves. He stretched out his right hand. In an extremely crude manner, he swung his palm over. Boom! The ancient well surged with an obscure Tao light, but it was directly shattered by the palm wind. The old Taoist who was sitting cross-legged on the well was slapped until he exploded like a bubble. However, the strange thing was that in just an instant, the old Taoist's figure condensed again. As if he was infuriated by that extremely rude slap, he shouted, "Young man, do you really want to die?" Boom! The moment he said that, Ling Xuanzi slapped him again, causing the old Taoist to explode once more. "Old fart, I do. Are you going to fight me?" A disdainful scolding sounded, and Ling Xuanzi's expression was filled with unbridled contempt. The old Taoist's figure condensed again, and his voice was extremely cold. "Young man, boom!" He had just said 3 words when he was slapped by Ling Xuanzi again. "Come on, F***ck me over and destroy me." A wisp of ruthlessness arose in Ling Xuanzi's eyes, and he grinned mischievously. "Old bastard, if I wasn't suppressed by my master all those years ago, trash like you wouldn't even have the qualifications to enter my eyes. Do you understand?" His voice was eerie. Seeing that the old Taoist priest's figure had condensed again, he casually waved his 3,000 floating and sinking sword. Whoosh! The horsetail whisk that was brilliant like starlight and bright like snow was lifted up like a river of time, and it revealed the grand scene of the vicissitudes of history and the destruction of the world. In an instant, the old Taoist's body exploded. Before the flying rain of light could gather again, it was sucked into the floating horsetail whisk. It was obliterated inch by inch, disappearing into nothingness. "Ha ha ha, young man, aren't you a bit too childish? What you shattered was merely a strand of my aura." From deep within the ancient well, the old Taoist's laughter echoed out. "If you really have the ability, do you dare to come in and fight? Do you really think I wouldn't dare?" Ling Xuanzi snorted coldly and was about to step into the well. But in the next moment, he sneered and retracted his foot. "Old bastard, do you really think I'll fall for it? It doesn't matter if you fall for it or not. What's important is that you don't dare. You're afraid. No matter how arrogant you are, you don't have full confidence in defeating me. That's a fact, regardless of whether you admit it or not." The old Taoist's voice was indifferent from within the well. "Oh," replied Ling Xuanzi, and then his expression suddenly turned sorrowful as he sighed. "You're right, truly right." He seemed to have recalled something sad, and his handsome face was filled with loneliness as he stood there. This abnormal scene clearly caught the old Taoist off guard, and he fell silent for a moment before he chuckled coldly. "Aren't you very arrogant? Why are you so terrified now?" Ling Xuanzi sighed once more. "I just suddenly recalled that you're no different from me in the past. You were suppressed as well." The old Taoist was clearly surprised. "Yes, I was personally suppressed by my master. If it wasn't for that, my current accomplishments in the Grand Tao wouldn't be limited to this." When he spoke up to hear, Ling Xuanzi asked, "What about you? How were you suppressed?" The topic had clearly been diverted, and the originally hostile atmosphere had become subtle. However, the old Taoist didn't seem to feel that anything was amiss. After a moment of silence, he said, "Do you really want to know? In any case, I can't do anything to you at this moment, and you can't do anything to me. Why don't you tell me?" Ling Xuanzi said casually. After another moment of silence, the old Taoist said, "My most beloved woman was snatched away by the Tai Yi Dao sect's founding ancestor." His voice was filled with indescribable rage and hatred, and even the passage of countless years was unable to dilute it. "Ling Xuanzi. At that time, I became the laughingstock of the world, and I was too ashamed to show my face. For the sake of revenge, I killed my way into the Tai Yi Dao sect alone." When he spoke up to hear, the old Taoist's voice carried a wisp of madness and savagery. "At that time, I swore that if I don't completely destroy this pair of dogs, swear that I'm not a human." Ling Xuanzi couldn't help but ask, "And then?" "Of course, I failed." The old Taoist's voice was filled with depression and bitterness. "Not only did I fail, even a treasure branded with the seal of the era that I gathered with great difficulty was seized away by you pair of dogs. The old Taoist was unable to continue. The events of all those years ago had obviously caused him too much harm, and it was engraved into his heart. Ling Xuanzi let out a long sigh. "In this way, you're much more miserable than me. Your woman was seized, and you lost all face. When you finally went to take revenge with great difficulty, you were suppressed here by your enemy, and even the treasures in your possession were seized. It's truly too tragic." As he finished speaking, a wisp of a smile that couldn't be restrained appeared on the corners of Ling Xuanzi's mouth. He seemed to be desperately restraining it, and even his body started to tremble slightly. "Alas, you're still young and don't understand at all. The most tragic thing in this world is absolutely not like this. It's because you're still alive, yet the people you hate have vanished a long time ago. Taking revenge, venting hatred, washing away the humiliation. All of that is impossible." The old Taoist's voice was extremely heavy. Ling Xuanzi was unable to restrain himself in the end when he heard this, and he burst into laughter. "Ha! Ha 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 ha!" This laughter seemed to be extremely ear-piercing amidst this sorrowful and heavy atmosphere. The old Taoist was furious at the bottom of the well. "Fellow Taoist, are you laughing at me?" "No, I just couldn't restrain myself." "Alas, wouldn't you be unable to take off your green hat forever? It's truly too tragic. Ha ha." As he spoke, Ling Xuanzi couldn't help but start laughing once more, and he laughed to the point his mouth almost reached his ears. In the end, he even held his stomach and pounded the ground while laughing madly without end, and tears were on the verge of flowing down. The old Taoist finally realized that he'd been played, and he was instantly enraged to the point he was on the verge of going mad. He roared, "Little bastard! How dare you humiliate me like this? I'll surely burn your bones and scatter your ashes when I emerge from the seal." The deepest pain in his heart was mercilessly ridiculed by another, and this was simply like a sharp blade that stabbed fiercely into the old Taoist's heart, causing him to go mad with rage. The well shook violently while a boundlessly terrifying baleful energy surged. At the side of the well, the Tai sword droned and clanged as it emanated countless strands of sword chi that slashed towards the bottom of the well. However, it was still unable to suppress the violent shaking of the well. Ling Xuanzi stopped laughing, and his eyes revealed a look of yearning as he muttered in his heart. If I didn't provoke you like this, how could you possibly charge out at all costs? However, you're truly too pitiful, old fellow. In the end, Ling Xuanzi couldn't help but grin. However, he couldn't help but frown when he saw that even though the well was shaking violently, the old Taoist still hadn't charged out after a long time. Old Green, can you do it? Ling Xuanzi shouted. Quickly, bring out your true ability. Kill your way out and destroy me. Old Green. When he heard this extremely humiliating form of address, the old Taoist was angered to the point he almost coughed up blood, and he roared endlessly. Bastard! I swear that if I don't kill you in this lifetime, then I'm not a man. Ling Xuanzi chuckled. You swore like this all those years ago and clamored about killing the person that made you a cuckold. But in the end, you suffered a double loss. In my opinion, Old Green, you should just stay here obediently so as to avoid becoming the laughingstock of the world when you go out. Once people say that the dignified great devil of the last era, D. Sure, has changed his surname to Green, wouldn't that make everyone in the world burst from laughter? I want kill you. At the bottom of the well, the old Taoist had obviously gone mad with rage. Every single word he spoke resounded like a terrifying thunderclap, and it caused this restricted area to fall into a state of destruction. If it was any other cultivator here, that cultivator's mind would have been shattered by this voice a long time ago. However, Ling Xuanzi seemed as if he didn't notice it, and he continued roaring with laughter. Old Green, don't be like this. Even if I die from laughter, you who are trapped in the well are unable to inherit my grand Tao. But it was precisely under such provocation that the old Taoist at the bottom of the well only roared furiously without revealing himself for a long time. This allowed Ling Xuanzi to realize that this fellow who'd survived from the last era obviously hadn't accumulated sufficient strength to break through the seal here. After thinking for a moment, Ling Xuanzi decided not to stay here any longer. However, before he left, Ling Xuanzi stretched out his finger and drew repeatedly through the air, and he inscribed a profound and unfathomable formation diagram on the well. After that, he placed his hands behind his back and roared with laughter as he swaggered off. Old Green, if we're fated to meet again, then I'll definitely help you set up an epitaph that can be passed down through the ages. Ha! His voice reverberated through the heavens and the earth before gradually vanishing. After a long time, a strand of rain of light surged out from within the well, and it transformed into an old Taoist. He stared at the direction Ling Xuanzi left towards while revealing monstrous, icy cold hatred. I'll definitely slaughter your entire clan of vengeance the day I escape. After a long time, he lowered his head and glanced at the wall of the well. He instantly seemed as if he'd been struck by lightning. His entire body trembled as he let out a boundlessly furious roar that resounded through the sky and caused the entire Grand Tao ruins to suddenly tremble. Countless dense Tao markings surged on the wall of the well, and they drew out a lifelike, and dazzling large word. Green. Chapter 2601. Outside the relic of the Tao, in the starry sky of the universe. Lin Sun and the others didn't have to wait too long before they saw a handsome young man walking in the relic of the Tao in the distance. He held a horsetail whisk in one hand and strolled over leisurely. When he saw this scene, Lin Sun secretly breathed a sigh of relief, but he couldn't help but be vigilant. He was wary of this extreme and unpredictable fourth senior brother. If fourth senior brother didn't intend to continue to fulfill the previous bet, there would be endless trouble. After a few steps, Ling Xuanzi suddenly came in front of Lin Sun and the others. He looked at Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu with a smile and said in a friendly tone, "Are the two of you friends of my junior brother? Very good. I've seen all the scenes of you risking your lives to help my junior brother. This is a small token of my gratitude. I hope you won't mind." As he spoke, Ling Xuanzi opened his palm, and more than 10 Ancestor Realm evil spirit beads appeared. He handed them over. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu were stunned and at a loss. This unimaginably powerful existence had killed his way into the relic of the Tao that everyone regarded as a dead end. Now, not only did he return unscathed, but he also brought a large number of rare ancestor realm beads. Take it. Ling Xuanzi smiled and gave the treasures to the two. Then, he looked at Lin Sun. He touched his nose and sighed. Junior brother, do you have to look at me like I'm a thief? Lin Sun pointed to the distance and said expressionlessly, Let's talk alone? Ling Xuanzi readily agreed. What a coincidence. I also have a lot to talk to you about. Immediately, the two moved across the void and came to a distance. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu looked at each other and didn't disturb them. However, they couldn't help but wonder if Lin Sun's senior brother had defeated the evil god Dishi, who was sealed in the depths of the ancient well. Why didn't Lin Sun like his unfathomable senior brother? Back in the ultimate, you had the ability to escape from the suppression of the Tower of Ceaseless? Lin Sun asked directly. Ling Xuanzi smiled. I thought you already knew, little junior brother. Lin Sun frowned and said, I'm talking about serious business. Fourth senior brother, you'd better stop smiling. The corners of Ling Xuanzi's mouth twitched, and he suddenly took a deep breath to suppress the displeasure in his heart before nodding seriously. Yes, I entered the Tower of Endless End on my own accord. Firstly, I'm willing to accept my loss and fulfill my promise, and secondly, I want to see how many tricks are hidden within this supreme treasure that Master left behind. Lin Sun's eyelids twitched. Do you see it? Ling Xuanzi sighed and shook his head. This treasure is just like Master. I can't understand it, nor can I see through it. Lin Sun suddenly asked, Have you been watching my every move all these years? Ling Xuanzi rubbed the space between his brows and said, I expected you to ask that. Little junior brother, I'm not a wretched and perverted peeping Tom. Besides that, is my image in your heart so terrible? Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. I'm asking you, not you asking me. Ling Xuanzi raised his hands and said with a look of admitting defeat, Okay, you ask and I answer. Who asked you to be my little junior brother? His voice was full of helplessness. It was obvious that this little junior brother still had a prejudice against his senior brother. If it were someone else, even in the face of Dishi, who was sealed in the ancient well, Ling Xuanzi would never suppress his inner emotions like this. If he dared to be treated like this, he would have slapped him. But in the face of Lin Sun, he could only pinch his nose and bear it. Seeing Ling Xuanzi being submissive and swallowing his anger, Lin Sun became more vigilant and said, You have such powerful strength and are not afraid of the suppression of the Tower of Ceaseless. Why don't you plan to leave? Don't you know that when I see second senior brother or master, I'll let them deal with me? Ling Xuanzi smacked his lips and said weakly, I lost the bet. What's more, Zhong Qiu can't kill me even if he wants to, and master will never kill me. The meaning of these words was obvious. He was not afraid of second senior brother Zhong Qiu, and he firmly believed that master would not kill him. Really? Lin Sun asked. Ling Xuanzi said grumpily, Little junior brother, I have to tell you about the past of our mountain of mind and heart. Although I entered the sect one step later than first senior brother, second senior brother and third senior sister, the only one who can make me afraid of the whole mountain of mind and heart is first senior brother. The one who can make me feel helpless is third senior sister. The one I can't stand the most is second senior brother. Lin Sun couldn't help being surprised. Why don't you like second senior brother? Too proud. Ling Xuanzi narrowed his eyes, and a strong sense of displeasure appeared on his handsome face. I, Ling Xuanzi, was praised as the best in the history by master, but I'm not as proud as him. In short, I want to beat him when I see him. Lin Sun, this was really a strange reason. Why does third senior sister make you feel helpless? Lin Sun asked. Ling Xuanzi showed a wry smile in his eyes and said, Let her tell you when you see her. In short, she is a person that people can't hate even if they want to. Lin Sun was silent for a long time and said, "Fourth senior brother, I ask you one last time, is it really just a bet?" Ling Xuanzi stared at Lin Sun for a moment and suddenly laughed at himself and said, "Little junior brother, let me ask you, if I want to break my promise, can you stop me?" Lin Sun shook his head. Ling Xuanzi showed a bright smile, put his arm around Lin Sun's shoulder, and said, "Let me put it this way, even if I'm a first-class devil in the world, I will never hurt people of Mountain of Mind and Heart. This is my bottom line, and this is also the reason why Master only suppressed me at that time. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. You will understand in the future." As he said, he patted Lin Sun on the shoulder. Lin Sun frowned, glanced at the cynical Ling Xuanzi, and said, "If you lie to me, I promise I won't call you fourth senior brother again." Ling Xuanzi's entire body stiffened, and then he wailed, "Little junior brother, senior brother almost fought that wailing old bastard to the death for you. Can't we have a little more trust between us brothers?" As he spoke, he was the first to be amused, and he chuckled as he said, "You don't know, that old bastard is actually the most unlucky person in the world. Not only was he made a cuckold, he was even suppressed alive for countless years. Ha ha, at that time I almost couldn't bear to deal with him." He clutched his stomach and laughed out loud. "And, before I left him a message. I think he probably won't be able to forget me for the rest of his life. This is good as well. After offending our Fangtsuan Mountain, how could we let him off so easily?" Lin Sun was speechless for a moment, and his eyes were strange. That was the evil god Dishi. An unimaginably horrible existence, but in the mouth of fourth senior brother, why did he become a poor guy who was cuckolded? "Hey, don't talk about him. Little junior brother, you have to be careful. With the old bastard's cultivation, I'm afraid it will take him a few years to get out of trouble. At that time, he will come to you as soon as possible." Ling Xuanzi stopped smiling and said, "In addition, you can rest assured that as long as it doesn't involve the honor of Mountain of Mind and Heart, I won't come out to disturb you again, unless what?" Lin Sun asked. "Unless you beg me to help." Ling Xuanzi blinked his eyes, and his handsome face was full of unconcealable smile. "Do you think it's possible?" Lin Sun sneered. When he was attacked by the evil god Dishi this time, even at the moment when he was almost killed, he never thought of using the power of Ling Xuanzi. It was not that he was paranoid, but he didn't think about it at all. What's more, at that time, he had already been ready to use the forbidden passing to break out of the encirclement. Ling Xuanzi didn't care at all and said with a smile, "Little junior brother, you are unyielding and inspiring. Then I can only change my way." "What way?" "I beg you to let me help you." After that, Ling Xuanzi laughed, and his figure suddenly turned into a ray of light, disappearing in the Tower of Infinity. Lin Sun was stunned. After a while, he sighed softly and said in his heart, "I hope it's really like what you said. If you're willing to bet, you must be willing to lose." Looking at the distance again, the turbulence in the relics of the Tao had quieted down, and even the breath of those evil spirits could not be felt. Compared with before, it seemed to be much more deserted. It seems that the evil god Dishi probably suffered a great loss in the hands of the fourth senior brother, so he hibernated again. Lin Sun shook his head and turned to walk towards Xie Yuan and Ling Xuanzi. What happened in the relics of the Tao had nothing to do with him. The top priority was to return to Tai City as soon as possible. Tai City. The city was deserted, and the atmosphere was extremely depressing. These days, many practitioners left in a hurry for fear that the chaos in the relics of the Tao would affect Tai City. And as those practitioners who participated in the trial fought their way out of the encirclement and returned to Tai City, the news they brought back made people feel even more panicked and heavy. Especially today, the killing in the relics of the Tao was overwhelming. The blood light rushed out, spread over the universe, and the roars were like the thunder of the ninth heaven. Even in Tai City, people could feel the terrifying destructive aura from afar. Everyone felt as if the sky was about to collapse. But what everyone didn't expect was that as time went by, the bloody turmoil did not spread out from the relics of the Tao. Moreover, it gradually quieted down. At the same time, more and more practitioners returned alive. This caused everyone to feel very surprised. Even the city lord by Jianshan, who had long been ready for battle, never thought that such a disaster that was obviously about to sweep over would take the opportunity to continue. It gave people the feeling that the thunder was loud but the rain was small. Could it be that there was some kind of change in this? Bai Jianshan couldn't guess. Of course, the disaster did not break out, which was naturally a great thing for the entire Tai city. What? Lin Sun alone restrained most of the evil spirits on the battlefield, so that those practitioners had a chance to return alive? When the news that Lin Sun was besieged in the relics of the Tao came out, the whole Tai city was shocked. Many people couldn't believe it. Where is Lin Sun? Countless people were also concerned about Lin Sun's safety and life. Chapter 2602. Tai city was shaken as all sorts of discussions arose. From what I see, Lin Sun has already died in the Great Path relic. You don't know how spectacular the scene was. Evil spirits covered the sky and earth, charging at him as if they had gone mad. A great emperor who had participated in the trial sighed in a restaurant. There was nothing we could do. We couldn't even take care of ourselves at that time. It was impossible for us to rescue him. Speaking of which, all of us should be grateful to Lin Sun for being able to return alive. If it wasn't for him drawing away most of the enemies by himself, there would absolutely be very few challengers who could leave the relics of the Tao alive. Such discussions arose in different places in Tai city. Lin Sun had not returned for a long time. This made everyone realize that the great Emperor Juing, who had once shaken Tai city, had died in the Great Path relic. This made people sigh. But this was the vast thousand-battle domain. Since ancient times, who knew how many great emperors had died like this, turning into a pile of bones and dissipating in the passage of time? Perhaps, after many years, they would gradually be forgotten. In my opinion, even if Lin Sun can return alive, he won't live for long. Don't forget, he has completely offended the Wen, Heng, and Luo immortal emperor clans. In the city, a man in a luxurious robe sneered. Since ancient times, who has gone against the immortal emperor clans had a good ending. What the fuck did you say? In the distance, Peng Tianxiang was enraged. He pointed at the man in luxurious robe and cursed. Beside him, Dugu Yuran frowned and looked at the sky in a daze. The man in luxurious robe's expression changed slightly, but he still stiffened his neck and said, "I'm just speaking the truth. No matter how angry you are, you can't change the fact that Lin Sun has died." None of the experts from the Wen, Heng, and Luo immortal emperor clans returned alive, Dugu Yuran suddenly said. Peng Tianxiang was startled. That seems to be the case. The man in luxurious robe couldn't help but laugh. With the power of the three immortal emperor clans, it's impossible for them to die. As he spoke, there was a sudden exclamation nearby. Outside the sky, 3 dazzling divine rainbows arrived. They were dazzling, and the person in the lead was someone that no one had expected. Lin Sun? The man in luxurious robes was instantly dumbfounded, and he looked as if he'd seen a ghost. Brother Lin. Peng Tianxiang was already excited to the point of crying out loudly, his eyes shining with joy that came from the bottom of his heart. The corners of Dugu Yuran's mouth curled into a smile. He also heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. This guy won't get into trouble so easily. It really is him. Wasn't he surrounded by the evil spirit army? Don't tell me they've killed their way out? The surroundings erupted into commotion. Many people widened their eyes. At this moment, countless people in Tai city noticed this scene, and they couldn't help but be shocked. He was actually able to survive under such a hopeless situation? especially those cultivators who'd participated in the trials and seen Lin Sun being besieged. At this moment, they simply seemed as if they'd witnessed a miracle, and they felt it was so unreal. Whoosh! Lin Sun landed on the ground and appeared in the field. How could you still be alive? The man in luxurious robes asked subconsciously. Before Lin Sun could speak, Yuduchu frowned and said coldly, "Could it be that you wish for all of us to die in the Great Path Relic?" The man in luxurious robes hurriedly shook his head and said with an embarrassed smile, I was just too shocked. Please don't misunderstand. You're from the One clan? Xiang Xiaoyuan asked. The man in luxurious robes had a look of discomfort on his face. Pring Tianxiang also reacted at this moment, and he sneered and said, "Well, no wonder you were so weird just now. So you're from the One clan." The man in luxurious robes became even more uncomfortable, and he intended to turn around and leave in a hurry. Lin Sun suddenly kindly reminded him, "You don't have to wait. When I returned earlier, I saw that all the cultivators from the One, Heng, and Luo clans had been annihilated." Boom! An uproar broke out in the surroundings, and countless people were shocked. Those cultivators who were far inferior to the three immortal imperial clans had escaped with their lives, but the cultivators from the three immortal imperial clans had been annihilated? Impossible! The man in luxurious robes' expression changed drastically. Whether you believe it or not, it's up to you. Lin Sun was too lazy to pay attention to this person, and he walked towards Dugu Yuran and said, "Thank you for your reminder." Dugu Yuran was very surprised. She had never thought that Lin Sun would take the initiative to thank her. This made her wonder if Lin Sun had been stimulated by something and had become abnormal. Otherwise, why would he thank me? This was too abnormal. This was completely unlike his style. After holding it in for a long time, she coldly snorted and said, "Who asked you to be my savior? If you die, who will I find to repay my kindness?" Lin Sun was stunned. This woman was still thinking about repaying his kindness? Didn't this mean that she would still appear by his side like a troublemaker in the future? "Don't ever repay my kindness. This time we're even," Lin Sun hurriedly said. Dugu Yuran laughed, feeling that this was normal for Lin Sun. She raised her eyebrows, and a smile appeared in her starry eyes. She slightly raised the corner of her mouth and said, "Whether we're even or not, I have the final say. Otherwise, if people think that I'm an ungrateful villain, it's tantamount to stabbing me in the back. I will never agree." Lin Sun suddenly had a headache. Pring Tianxiang laughed heartily instead and said, "Brother Lin, Yuran treats you as a friend, and that's why he has such good intentions. Now that you've returned safely, it's undoubtedly a joyous occasion. Come, I'll be the host and we'll have a proper celebration. By the way, these two friends, come with us." He warmly invited Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu. "Okay." Lin Sun readily agreed. He had just gone through a dangerous battle, and it was time for him to relax. "Aren't you going to invite me?" Dugu Yuran asked. Ping Tianxiang quivered, and showed what he thought was his most brilliant smile. He affectionately said, "Yuran, how could I ignore you?" Seeing this, Lin Sun suddenly did not want to go, until the group of people left. The man in the luxurious robe still stood there with a dazed look. He was like a stone, waiting and looking forward to his husband's return. But when night fell, the three immortal emperor clans of Wen, Heng, and Luo still did not return. This made him feel extremely desperate. What Lin Sun said was very likely true. In fact, on the same day, the news of Lin Sun's return and the annihilation of the three immortal emperor clans swept across Tai City like a storm. It's already a miracle that Lin Sun is still alive, but none of the cultivators of the three immortal emperor clans returned alive. Why does this feel even more unreal? Many people's minds were in turmoil. The cultivators of the three immortal emperor clans were extremely powerful. They had several Tao ancestors, and a group of peerless great emperors following them. Among all the participants, they could be considered as the best. Unfortunately, such a powerful group of people did not survive. Could this be Lin Sun's doing? After all, there's a deep hatred between them. Someone speculated, but it was quickly refuted. What a joke! Lin Sun was deeply surrounded, and it's already hard to imagine that he could return alive. How could he have the ability to kill the 3 immortal emperor clans? You're just talking nonsense. Why don't you say that it was Lin Sun who cleared the chaos in the Great Path Relic and resolved the crisis facing Tai City? You should have some brains if you want to make accusations. Someone sneered. If Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu heard this, they would probably raise their thumbs up and praise this person for his sharp eyes. Because the person who cleared the chaos in the Great Path Relic was inextricably linked to Lin Sun, even though it was not him. It could even be said that without Lin Sun, the chaos that swept through Tai City was destined to be unavoidable. While the city was in an uproar. In a restaurant, the lights were bright and the music was pleasant. At the banquet, the tables in front of Lin Sun, Xiang Xiaoyuan, Yu Duqiu, Duguyuran, Peng Tianxiang, and the others were filled with rare and expensive immortal wine and nectar, as well as all kinds of delicacies. They were all the best delicacies in the restaurant. It was difficult for ordinary cultivators to enjoy these delicacies, even if they had enough cosmic origin crystals, because many of the ingredients in these delicacies were in limited supply. Even nobles from the immortal emperor clans like Peng Tianxiang had to make reservations in advance. But, with the arrival of Duguyuran, all of this was no longer a problem. The restaurant even took out a jar of immortal wine that had been kept for many years. It was said to be the best preserved from the last era. It was obtained by a great figure who entered the Great Path Relic a long time ago and accidentally found it in a forbidden cave residence. This banquet was an eye-opener for Lin Sun. There was no such ingredient in the Starry Sky ancient path, let alone tasting it. At the banquet, people toasted each other, and the atmosphere was harmonious. Only Duguyuran seemed a little absent-minded. When the banquet was about to end, she suddenly raised her glass and looked at Lin Sun from afar. She said with a smile, "Benefactor Lin, let me toast you." Without waiting for Lin Sun's reply, she raised her snow-white neck and drank up. Lin Sun was stunned for a moment, and then he also picked up his glass and drank up. Seeing this, Duguyuran smiled, and her eyes narrowed into a pair of curved crescent moons. Then, she poured another glass of wine and said to the crowd, "This is a toast to everyone." At this time, even Peng Tianxiang noticed that there was something wrong with Duguyuran. He couldn't help but ask, "Yuran, is there something on your mind?" At this time, an invisible pressure suddenly surged in the hall. It was like a cold wind pouring in, and the lively atmosphere of the banquet was dispersed. The figures of everyone stiffened in unison, and then they saw a tall and peerlessly handsome man in jade robes had suddenly appeared within the hall. Graceful as a phoenix, unparalleled in style. With his appearance, an invisible and terrifying pressure spread out, making him look like a god descending to the earth. He became the only light in the hall. Peng Tianxiang's breath stopped. His fingers trembled, and the wine glass in his hand almost fell. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu couldn't help but show deep fear. They looked surprised and doubtful. Even Lin Sun's pupils shrank slightly. This man was extremely dangerous. Only Duguyuran showed a trace of imperceptible helplessness. Chapter 2603. The atmosphere in the hall became silent. The music had disappeared at some point in time. All of this was because of the man in jade robes who had suddenly appeared. He was indeed too extraordinary. His eyes were clear and his demeanor was otherworldly. Every single move he made conformed to the great Tao, giving others a feeling that he was like the great Tao and was invulnerable. "I'm sorry for disturbing your mood." The man seemed very calm. As soon as he arrived, he rapped his fist in his palm towards Lin Sun and the others. There was a hint of apology on his face, and he did not seem to be arrogant at all. But everyone could see that under the man's modest appearance, There was an absolute conceit and confidence. Peng Tianxiang seemed to have recognized the man. He stood up with a nervous expression that was rarely seen on his face. He was slightly reserved and respectful as he said, "Fellow Taoist, you don't have to be so polite." He actually lost his composure. The man in jade robes smiled faintly and said, "I recognize you. You're a hero of the Peng family." Peng Tianxiang could not help but feel flattered and said in surprise, "Fellow Taoist, you know me as well?" It was as if being known by the man in jade robes was something to be proud of. At that moment, anyone could tell that the man in jade robes was not simple. Peng Tianxiang was from the Immortal Emperor clan, but he did not have his usual arrogance in front of the man. "Can't you wait for me to finish this banquet?" Before the man in jade robes could say anything, Dugu Yuran suddenly spoke in a cold and indifferent voice. "Yuran, the situation is urgent. I have no choice but to do this." The man in jade robes laughed bitterly. "The clan leader has already ordered that if I don't see you in 10 days, he will punish me. You should know his temper the best." Dugu Yuran's exquisite eyebrows furrowed, and she said in annoyance, "Just what is it that makes you want me to go back?" The man in jade robes sighed, "I really don't know." "Don't tell me you plan to matchmake me again?" Dugu Yuran was slightly depressed. As she spoke, she stood up and said, "Fine, I'll go back. At worst, I'll just sneak out again." The corners of the man in jade robes' lips twitched imperceptibly, but he did not say anything. "Brother Lin, I can only wait until you reach the eternal true world and find a chance to repay your kindness. Don't be surprised the next time we meet." Dugu walked out of the hall leisurely. When he passed by Lin Sun, he winked at him without anyone noticing. His eyes gleamed with slyness. Lin Sun was the only one who could hear the sound she transmitted. As soon as she finished speaking, she'd already vanished from the hall. "You must be Lin Sun, fellow practitioner." The man in the jade robe was about to leave when he thought of something. He stopped and looked at Lin Sun. Lin Sun nodded and said, "Yes." The man in the jade robe said with a smile, "I've heard some things about you, and I admire you a lot. If you encounter any trouble in the future, feel free to mention my name. I believe that I'll be of some use in the great 1,000 battle domains." His words seemed modest, but they were filled with absolute conceit. Lin Sun was stunned and couldn't help smiling. "Thank you for your kindness. Are you leaving or not?" Dugu Yuran's impatient voice resounded from outside the hall. "I'm coming." The man in the jade robe laughed heartily and walked out of the hall. His voice resounded in the hall, "Remember, my name is Yun Muzha." His voice was still echoing in the hall, but he'd already left. "This guy's style is unique and admirable." Yu Duqiu sighed. Although Yun Muzha only appeared for a short time, his invisible power and style made him feel ashamed of his inferiority. There was no doubt that this was an extremely powerful existence. Because he's Yun Muzha, a legendary Emperor realm cultivator second to none in the eternal true world. He's one of the top 10 Emperor ancestors in the 7th heaven. He's only cultivated for 7,600 years, but he's already suppressed the world and made countless old monsters bow their heads. Peng Tianxiang murmured, his eyes filled with fanaticism and admiration from the bottom of his heart. "Do you know, if a peerless emperor ancestor like him comes to my Peng family, my grandfather who's been in seclusion for God knows how many years will personally welcome him?" These words made Yu Duqiu gasp in shock. Although he'd already guessed that Yun Muzha was extraordinary, he didn't expect him to have such a dazzling halo. So he's one of the top 10 emperor ancestors in the 7th heaven. No wonder he's so humble and polite, but also so invincible. Xiang Xiaoyuan couldn't help but cry out in surprise. Obviously, she'd also heard some rumors. Lin Sun suddenly asked, "Are there very few emperor ancestors in the eternal true world?" "Very few. Very few. Even among 10,000 emperor ancestors, there might not be such a legend." Peng Tianxiang didn't hesitate. It's said that there's only a 1 in a million chance to prove one's Tao between the path of Tao and becoming an emperor ancestor. Ordinary peerless emperors can't even touch this chance. Even if they have the ability to grasp it, they'll have to go through an unpredictable disaster when they prove their Tao. This disaster is regarded as the ultimate Tao disaster. In the history of the eternal true world, countless terrifying and heaven-defying people have died because of this disaster. And Yunmuzha is a person who has gone through the ultimate Tao disaster. In the eyes of countless living beings in the eternal true world, he's no different from a god. Lin Sun finally understood. In the past, he knew that it's extremely difficult to become an emperor ancestor at the peak, but he didn't expect that even in the eternal true world, there are very few people like him. So, there's no such emperor ancestor in the top 6 heavens? Yuduchio couldn't help but ask. Yes, Peng Tianxiang said, but every time such a person appears, he'll be immediately taken by the immortal forces from the 8th heaven to cultivate in the 8th heaven. Yuduchio couldn't help but be moved. Even the immortal giants of the 8th heaven are fighting for such a person. One can imagine how special the realm of the Emperor Ancestor is. Speaking of which, the top 6 heavens can't be compared to the 7th heaven, let alone the 8th heaven. In the end, it's all because of the difference in cultivation resources. Peng Tianxiang sighed. In the 7th heaven, you can collect heaven-ranked order power, which is enough for an immortal emperor to benefit endlessly. At least after transcending the ancestor realm and stepping on the path of immortality, you won't have to worry about condensing the law of immortality. In the 8th heaven, there is even a heaven-ranked order power. In the top 6 heavens, not to mention the heaven-ranked order power, even the earth-ranked order power is rare. Even some immortal emperor clans often have bloody conflicts over some order power. Peng Tianxiang sighed, and Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yuduchio couldn't calm their hearts. Lin Sun was thinking about one thing. The order power he has mastered is not small, such as the Order Phoenix Flame, the Nirvana Order, the Netherworld Order, and the Immortal World Order reshaped by the Nirvana Order. Moreover, there is also the Order Spirit Wushuang that survived from the last era. According to Peng Tianxiang, just in terms of the number of order power he has, isn't he richer than many immortal emperor clans in the top 6 heavens? Brother Peng, can I ask, what is the relationship between Yunmuzha and Miss Yuran? Yuduchio couldn't help but ask. They can be considered cousins. As far as I know, Yuran's mother is from the Yun clan where Yunmuzha is from. A trace of sadness appeared in Peng Tianxiang's eyes. How good would it be if they were purely cousins? The banquet ended quickly. Lin Sun couldn't be said to be sentimental. He just wanted Dugu Yuran to be taken away so that she wouldn't cause trouble for him. In fact, if Yunja had an extremely arrogant and tyrannical temperament, he would have caused a lot of trouble during this banquet. Brother Lin, what do you plan to do next? Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yuduchio asked before they parted. Of course I'll continue forward, Lin Sun replied with a smile. The disaster in the Great Path Relic seemed to have subsided, but in fact, as long as Dishen didn't die, it could erupt at any time. It wouldn't be safe to stay in Tai City any longer. Brother Lin, why don't we move together? Yuduchio invited. Yes, we also plan to leave in the near future. Xiang Xiaoyuan looked at Lin Sun with a hopeful look. Lin Sun refused this time. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but he didn't want the two of them to be implicated. After all, the Luo family already knew that he had appeared in the Kiliakosm battlefield. They wouldn't give up easily in the future. At the same time, the forces of the Wen family and the Hing family were also worth being vigilant about. It's not that I don't want to, but there's actually another reason. Please forgive me, Lin Sun said apologetically. Although Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yuduchio were a little disappointed, they could vaguely guess what Lin Sun was talking about. They couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Brother Lin, then you have to take care of yourself. Maybe we'll meet again in the Immortal Pass in the future, Xiang Xiaoyuan said with a faint smile. Yes, don't worry about the road ahead. Yu Duqiu nodded. Hey, aren't you going to ask me about my plan? Peng Tianxiang, who had been silent all this time, couldn't help but feel anxious. He said to himself, I plan to return to the eternal world immediately and strive to get a chance to go to the seventh heaven to train. In this way I'll be able to meet Yuan again. At the end of his words, he couldn't help but show a look of longing. Lin Sun couldn't help but gasp. This guy had experienced so many twists and turns, but he still didn't give up. His feelings and heart were simply inspiring. Lin Sun couldn't bear to hurt him, so he patted him on the shoulder and encouraged him. Do your best and act according to your capabilities. Peng Tianxiang's eyes were firm. I will. The night was as dark as ink. When Lin Sun and others were saying goodbye, in front of an ancient transmission array in the city lord's mansion, Bai Jianchen smiled and cupped his hands. You too, I won't keep you any longer. I wish you a pleasant journey. In the ancient transmission array, Dugu Yuan muttered weakly, Uncle Bai, I'd rather there be some twists and turns along the way. Bai Jianchen was speechless. How could he not see that Dugu Yuan didn't want to be taken home like this? Even if there are twists and turns, I won't delay any time. On one side, Yun Muzha smiled brightly and looked handsome. Dugu Yuan rolled his eyes. Bai Jianchen and Yun Muzha looked at each other and smiled. The next moment, the transmission array sounded with a strange roar. At the same time, Yun Muzha's voice came to Bai Jianchen's ears. Uncle Bai, I don't want to see Lin Sun appear in the eternal world in the future. I hope you can help me with this small matter. I will repay you generously in the future. The smile on Bai Jianchen's face froze. He was just about to say something, but in the transmission array, Yun Muzha had already smiled and disappeared with Dugu Yuan. P.S. As long as there are no irresistible accidents this weekend, there will be another explosion. Chapter 2604. The night was dark. Bai Jianchen, with his hands behind his back, frowned in silence. His snow-white hair was fluttering in the wind, and his handsome face was uncertain. He knew Yun Muzha's details better than anyone else, and he knew how terrible a peerless figure Yun Muzha was. Yun Muzha was humble and polite in front of him, and regarded him as an elder. But Bai Jianchen knew that in Yun Muzha's eyes, he was no different from others. He would not be valued and treated seriously. Heaven and earth were heartless and regarded all things as straw dogs. This sentence meant that heaven and earth were indifferent to benevolence and treated all things as straw dogs. There was no difference. In Bai Jianchen's view, Yun Muzha was such a mentality. Because he was strong enough. He was so strong that there was no difference in his eyes between the humble ants and the powerful emperors under the great ancestor of Juexian. For such a person to suddenly say something like that before leaving, Bai Jianchen couldn't help but be surprised and even shocked. What was the reason that made such a figure hostile to a young man from the ancient way of the starry sky? Bai Jianchen couldn't figure it out, but he was sure that it was not because of Dugu Yuan. With Yun Muzha's personality, it was impossible for him to have such killing intent because of jealousy or fighting over a woman. If Yun Muzha was treated like this, it would be underestimating such a legendary great ancestor of Juexian. What was more, Yun Muzha was Dugu Yuan's cousin, and they had been cultivating together since childhood. Over the years, if Yun Muzha had expressed his love for Dugu Yuan, Dugu would have been most happy to see them together. Why would she bother to arrange a blind date for Dugu Yuan? It was no exaggeration to say that anyone who thought that Yun Muzha was such a character obsessed with women was absolutely out of his mind. But what was the reason that made Yun Muzha have such killing intent? There was a long silence. Bai Jianchen sighed softly, and a touch of determination flashed through his eyes. After bidding farewell to Xiang Xiaoyuan and the others, Lin Sun returned to the inn. Without waiting for a rest, he immediately took out the abyssal sword cauldron and released Luo Ling, who was suppressed in it. After killing the cultivators from the 3 immortal emperor clans in the Great Tao Relic, he only suppressed Luo Ling because he wanted to learn more about the Luo clan. Luo Ling was barely breathing as she lay on the ground. Her exquisite and slender body outlined a graceful curve. Lin Sun had to admit that this woman was extremely beautiful with snow-white skin and peerless beauty. No wonder when Xiaoheng fell in love with her. "Since you're awake, let's have a chat." Lin Sun sat on a chair at the side leisurely. Luo Ling raised her head. Her eyes were filled with indifference as she said, "Do you think you can make me lower my head just by capturing me?" Lin Sun smiled, pointed to the seat next to him and said, "Let's sit down and talk." After a moment of silence, Luo Ling crawled up from the ground and sat down. Her face was pale and her aura was weak, but her movements were as calm as ever. "I know that there's a God-restraining seal in your soul. Even if I search your soul, it's futile," Lin Sun looked over and said casually. "If that's the case, why are you still talking nonsense?" Luo Ling said coldly. "I can't search your soul. It doesn't mean that I can't destroy you." Lin Sun said, "When Xiaoheng was killed by me in this way. Otherwise, why do you think the Wen clan hates me so much?" Luo Ling was startled and sneered. "Then why don't you try and see if I'm afraid of death?" Lin Sun smiled. "I just want to talk about some unimportant things. You don't have to be so guarded. In fact, I'm very clear that the Luo clan will definitely send more powerful people to deal with me in the boundless 1,000 battle domains. To me, this means that I have more opportunities to understand some things I want to know." After a pause, his eyes were deep. "After all, the people of the Luo clan are not as unafraid of death as you are." His words caused Luo Ling's expression to change slightly. She said, "What exactly do you want to talk about?" The smile on Lin Sun's face disappeared. After a moment of silence, he said, "I want to talk about the grievances between my mother and the Luo clan." Luo Ling was stunned. "You don't know?" Lin Sun said, "I've roughly guessed it before." A hint of mockery appeared on Luo Ling's beautiful face. "You don't even know how your mother betrayed the clan behind her. Haha, interesting." "Interesting?" Lin Sun's eyes suddenly became cold and as deep as an abyss. Luo Ling felt suffocated, and the mocking words on the tip of her tongue could not come out. Lin Sun knocked on the table and said indifferently, "I hope you just want to talk about business and don't provoke me again. Perhaps in the eyes of the Luo clan, your life is extremely precious, but to me, you're nothing more than prey at any time." Luo Ling's expression changed, and indescribable shame and indignation surged in her heart. After a long time, she took a deep breath and said, "Whether you accept it or not, in the eyes of the Luo clan today, your mother, Luo Qingxuan, is a traitor. A long time ago, she secretly took away the heaven-accessing place left by the master of Tongtian and escaped from the eternal world under the protection of her brother, Luo Xingming." Speaking of this, a strong anger surged between her eyebrows, and she said, "Without the heaven-accessing place, it means that the Luo clan has lost its most powerful treasure." From then on, the Luo clan began to decline from prosperity. In the following years, I don't know how many humiliating things have happened to us. Her words were filled with incomparable hatred. In the past, the Luo clan was the overlord of the 7th heaven and controlled the 9 ranks of the heaven rank. Who in the world dared to disrespect us? But now, not only have we been expelled from the 7th heaven, but we are also in a difficult situation in the 6th heaven. Speaking of this, her eyes were full of hatred. She stared at Lin Sun and said word by word, "It's all because of your mother." Lin Sun looked calm. Since it was Luo Ling who said these words, she naturally stood on the side of Luo family. "Do you know why my mother took the heaven-accessing place away?" he asked. Luo Ling frowned and said, "Is there still a need to say such a simple matter? It's definitely to usurp the position of patriarch. That's because the sky-reaching master set a rule that whoever controls the sky-reaching secret land will be the next clan leader." Lin Sun replied with a cold look, but since the heaven-accessing place fell into the hands of my mother, why didn't she take over the position of patriarch but became a traitor? Luo Ling said angrily. Because she's the thief who stole the treasure. How could this kind of traitor have the qualifications to take over the position of clan leader? Did you see it with your own eyes? Lin Sun asked expressionlessly. Luo Ling was startled, then she sneered. These things are all experienced by the elders of Luo family. Now it has become the consensus of all the Luo family. How can it be wrong? Lin Sun asked again. Let me ask you, did you see it with your own eyes? Luo Ling's expression was uncertain. After a while, she said, although I didn't see it with my own eyes, what the elders of the clan said should not be wrong. Lin Sun couldn't help but sneer. What elders of the clan? If they united to lie to cover up the truth of that year, how can what you know be true? Luo Ling also laughed sarcastically. I won't argue with you about the truth because the traitor is your mother. Of course, you can't accept the fact that she is a traitor. I just want to say that there is one thing you can't deny, that is, the heaven-accessing place was stolen by your mother. And because of the loss of the heaven-accessing place, Luo family has been humiliated day by day over the years. After that, she let out a long breath and said, also, you don't have to try to argue anymore. I've said what I should say. You can kill me or cut me up. Her face was full of calmness and determination. Lin Sun stared at her for a moment and said, do all the people of Luo family think like you now? Yes. Luo Ling answered without hesitation. Lin Sun was silent. He didn't speak for a long time. This abnormal scene made Luo Ling's heart skip a beat. She said, if you can't accept all this and want to atone for your mother, I can fight for a chance for you. As long as you hand over the heaven-accessing place and go back to Luo family with me, it will be tantamount to atoning for your crime. Atoning for my crime? Lin Sun laughed, but there was no warmth in his eyes, only extreme coldness. At the moment I was born, Luo family destroyed everything I could have had. Maybe you don't know that long ago, in my heart, Luo family had been sentenced to death. When he was just born, his spiritual vein was dug out, and his parents disappeared mysteriously. Finally, he was raised by Master Lu as an elder. But the appearance of the Star Destroyer destroyed the mine prison and made Master Lu disappear. Until he grew up, most of the killings on his way of cultivation were caused by Luo family. Whether it was the nameless Supreme Emperor, Shi Tiandi, Luo Xingfeng, Luo Chen, there were too many. This kind of hatred had long been branded in Lin Sun's bones. It's your mother who you should blame. She caused such a bitter fruit, and your misfortune is also part of it, Luo Ling sneered. Lin Sun reached out, lifted Luo Ling's chin, looked into her eyes, and said seriously, one day, when Luo family is destroyed, I will also tell you that it's not me who you should blame, but Luo family. This bitter fruit is caused by Luo family, and you deserve the misfortune you have suffered. Luo Ling still sneered. You want to destroy Luo family? You probably don't know what an immortal imperial family is. Even if Luo family is in decline, it's not something that you, a bumpkin from the starry ancient road, can shake. Buzz in Lin Sun's palm, a jade slip flowed with light, engraving this scene. What do you mean? Luo Ling frowned. Lin Sun put away the jade slip and smiled, revealing his white and neat teeth. He said, when the Luo family is destroyed, I will let you read what you said today again. Just take it as a souvenir. Looking at Lin Sun, who was calm and smiling, Luo Ling felt an uncontrollable chill in her heart inexplicably. Chapter 2605. After calming down, Luo Ling remembered a lot of things. Now Lin Sun was already a 7th-grade emperor. In the relics of the Tao, he killed the emperors from the Luo, the Wen and the Hing families all by himself. Moreover, he also had the talent of devouring abyss and mastered the heaven-accessing place. If he really had the chance to reach the eternal world alive, even if he couldn't threaten the Luo family immediately, He must be a big trouble that couldn't be ignored. And with Lin Sun's current foundation and cultivation, as long as he didn't encounter any difficulties, his achievements in the future were bound to be extremely terrifying. The more Luo Ling thought about it, the heavier her heart became. She looked at Lin Sun and was about to say something. Lin Sun said, "In order to fulfill what I said today, I won't kill you, but I can only suppress you for the time being." Bang! Before his voice died away, Luo Ling was knocked out. Lin Sun waved his hand and Luo Ling's treasures were taken out one by one, including storage rings and all kinds of treasures. Finally, Lin Sun's eyes fell on a strange piece of jade. This thing was black, with a small blood stain on its surface. Although it had long dried up, it was still bright red, exuding a heart-palpitating aura. When Lin Sun saw this thing for the first time, he had a wonderful feeling. The aura flowing in this strange jade was exactly the same as the aura of his spiritual vein. It seems that Luo Ling used this stone to sense my trace before. Lin Sun took the thing in his hand and played with it. But no matter how he sensed it with his divine awareness, he couldn't find any other mysteries. He couldn't help frowning. He thought for a while. He activated the power of the spiritual vein. Suddenly, the black jade buzzed, and the blood stain on it seemed to come to life, turning into wisps of blood and spreading in the lines of the black jade. Gradually, the veined patterns on the black jade began to show traces of cracks. In the end, the veined patterns on the black jade began to crack. Crack! The black jade suddenly burst into pieces. An incomparably dazzling divine light, with the obscure aura of time, poured into Lin Sun's heart before he could react. Boom! In an instant, Lin Sun's mind seemed to explode, and horrible scenes of battles emerged. A peerlessly dazzling door opened up in the starry sky, and a mighty figure bathed in golden divine flames stood within the door. He merely stretched out a hand and blasted back a figure that intended to charge into the dazzling door. The figure that was sent flying was none other than the Skirich Master, Luo Tongtian. Kill! Terrifying and boundless devouring power surged around Luo Tongtian's body. The torrent of time spread out from his body, causing the starry sky to distort, collapse, and explode. The turbulent flow of time splashed out like a raging long river. Together with Luo Tongtian, it charged violently towards the resplendent door. That force was too terrifying. It was related to the laws of time, and it seemed capable of pushing everything into the cycle of reincarnation and obliterating it. However, his opponent was even more terrifying. His entire body burned with golden divine flames as he stood within the dazzling door, and every single move he made was filled with supreme might. Rumble! The battle between the two of them caused that expanse of the starry sky to transform into nothingness, and only a dazzling door remained. Outside the door was Lord Heavenspan. Inside the door was that golden figure. The power that the two of them used in their battle was completely beyond Lin Sun's imagination. He simply could not comprehend the power that was related to immortality and accompanied by time. After a long time, Luo Tongtian was already riddled with injuries, but in the end, that horizontal golden figure that stood in front of the dazzling door was forcefully shattered. The golden divine flames that filled the sky danced wildly and dissipated. "This eternal door can't stop my killing." Luo Tongtian, who was riddled with injuries, let out a hearty laugh. However, as soon as he stepped into the dazzling door, a law bell filled with boundless chaotic aura suddenly appeared. Clang! The bell rang. The images in Lin Sun's mind exploded, as if they could not bear it, and revealed an incomparably terrifying power. Lin Sun's state of mind almost collapsed. His divine soul felt a stabbing pain, and his expression changed involuntarily. This was merely an image formed from a brand, yet it was still filled with such terrifying might. From this, it was obvious how unbelievable the might of that Tao bell was. When Lin Sun calmed down, another image emerged in his mind. In the endless void, Luo Tongtian was bleeding all over, his figure blurred, as if he had suffered an extremely terrible injury. The dazzling door had already disappeared. However, not far away from Luo Tongtian, figures appeared one after another. Each of their aura was like that of an immortal ruler, illuminating the heavens and overlooking the great world. Lin Sun could not see them clearly at all, because those figures were too dazzling, like gods above the ninth heaven, and he could not see their faces. Haha, looting a burning house? You things can't reach eternity yourselves, but you want to stop others from entering. How shameless! Luo Tongtian laughed, his voice full of undisguised contempt and sarcasm. Taoism friend Luo, as long as you leave behind the secret of the devouring abyss and hand over the heaven accessing place, we will leave right away. A figure spoke, indifferent and calm, as if the ruler of heaven was announcing his decree. The others all looked at Luo Tongtian. Is this the face of an immortal giant of the eighth heaven? Even if I die, I will never let you touch such power. Luo Tongtian laughed. After that, his body swiftly transformed into a large abyss that lay across the expanse of space, and it enveloped the figures that seemed like eternal overlords. Boom! In the next moment, the great abyss exploded, and the endless void was thrown into disorder. At this point, the image disappeared. Lin Sun was stunned. Has the Lord of Tongtian died? His heart was in a turmoil. Lin Sun had seen that dazzling door, that figure bathed in golden flames, a long time ago. That was the scene he saw when he first opened the heaven accessing place in Feiyun village. At that time, the Lord of Tongtian had punched through the green underworld, opened the gate of stars, and fought with a divine general of the star path. In the end, he did not win. But in the current scene, the Lord of Tongtian had opened the gate of stars again and killed the divine general of the star path, who was covered in golden flames. But when he stepped into the gate of stars, he was defeated by a law bell filled with the aura of chaos, and he was seriously injured. Then, a murderous calamity came to seize the power and treasures of the Lord of Tongtian. At the thought of that scene, Lin Sun felt a chill down his spine. The figures who were like immortal rulers were unimaginably powerful. Obviously, according to the Lord of Tongtian, those figures were from the immortal forces of the eighth heaven. The Gate of Stars, also known as the Gate of Eternity, and the disappearance of the Lord of Tongtian is not only related to the mysterious law bell in the gate, but also to the immortal forces of the eighth heaven. Lin Sun vaguely understood. Soon, he noticed that there was an obscure and mysterious power in the spiritual vein, which was covered with a ceiling-like power. At the same time, Lin Sun had an epiphany. The Blade of Time. This obscure and mysterious power turned out to be a taboo magical power, which could reverse time and cut down cultivation. Lin Sun couldn't help but think of the battle between Luo Tongtian and Wei Mingzi in the Relics of the Tao. With one punch, Luo Tongtian beat Wei Mingzi back to his youth, and his cultivation also fell to his youth. The power of that punch could reverse time and deprive cultivation, which was incredible. Now, when he obtained the Blade of Time, Lin Sun suddenly realized that the power contained in Luo Tongtian's punch was probably this kind of power. But at the same time, Lin Sun noticed that the Blade of Time was sealed and couldn't be touched by him at all. According to the aura he sensed, he realized at the first time that only by awakening the talent of the third stage of the devouring abyss could he break the seal and obtain the inheritance of the Blade of Time. It turns out that this is a magical power related to the third stage of the talent. After Lin Sun calmed down, he couldn't help sighing with emotion. Luo Ling probably didn't expect that she would accidentally deliver a fortuitous opportunity related to the devouring abyss into her hands, right? The strange black jade had already disappeared. But Lin Sun knew clearly that from this moment on, the Blade of Time was already in his possession. As long as he awakened the talent of the third stage, he would be able to control this magical power immediately. However, the Blade of Time is the talent awakened by the Lord of Tongtian. When I awaken the talent of the third stage, I should also be able to have my own talent. If so, does it mean that in addition to the Blade of Time, I can also master another magical power related to time? Thinking of this, Lin Sun couldn't help but have strong expectations. The forbidden passing was already so powerful. How powerful would the Blade of Time be? And what kind of brand new magical power could he awaken? Suddenly, Lin Sun's pupils shrank. A deadly and dangerous aura, like a sudden flood, filled the whole room in an instant. Lin Sun's figure rushed out, and his power suddenly burst out. The abyssal sword cauldron appeared at the first time. Clang! With a deafening explosion, a fierce and terrible force hit the abyssal sword cauldron. The abyssal sword cauldron roared violently, shook, and almost flew out. Lin Sun only felt that his blood and qi were surging, and his body was in severe pain. He couldn't help but groan. But he reacted very quickly and dodged at the first time. But the fierce and terrible attack was extremely terrible. It seemed to be omnipresent and omnipresent. No matter how he dodged, he couldn't get rid of it. Clang, clang, clang. Collision that shook the heavens and the earth resounded out ceaselessly. One could clearly see that strands of strange sword qi that were like divine whips descended, and they were dense like a violent storm that appeared out of thin air and assaulted Qin Shi from all directions. The abyssal sword cauldron was struck to the point of ceaselessly droning, while a rain of light shot out. At this moment, Lin Sun seemed to be quite embarrassed and in a dangerous situation. Because the abyssal sword cauldron had taken the initiative, he would be oppressed by the dense sword qi every time he tried to stabilize his body, which made him extremely passive. If it weren't for the abyssal sword cauldron, he might not be able to withstand this sudden and extremely fierce assassination at all. Chapter 2606. Boom. The power of prohibition covering the room of the inn exploded at the first time, and the splashing light rain swept across. Subsequently, the entire inn exploded with a bang. The dazzling and resplendent sword qi was like a dense divine ray of light that surged up in the ink-black veil of night. It was extremely gorgeous and terrifying. There was a burst of screams of horror nearby. Countless practitioners were frightened and fled to the distance. The scene was chaotic, but in next to no time, these movements were drowned out by a wave of earth-shattering collision sounds. Clang, clang, clang. The sword cauldron, which was flowing with hundreds of millions of Taoist lights, rumbled as it was hit by the storm-like sword qi. The terrifying and destructive aura spread across the world, and even the void collapsed. At this time, Lin Sun, who had been in a passive position, finally stabilized his figure. His cold and deep eyes were flowing with incomparably cold divine light. His tall figure was steaming with divine brilliance and dense Taoist light. He was like a great abyss that could move the world. Above his head, the abyssal sword cauldron rotated and boiled like a copper furnace in a chaotic world. It suppressed, defeated, and obliterated the sword qi that suddenly emerged from the void. Clang! Suddenly, a Taoist sword flew out of the abyssal sword cauldron and slashed into the distance. It was a tea-house not far from the inn. As early as the battle broke out, it had been hit. The building collapsed and the guests fled in panic. When the abyssal Taoist sword slashed, a huge ravine was suddenly torn open in the ruins. The terrifying and boundless sword intent oppressed the nearby void to explode. Almost at the same time, a muffled groan sounded. A slender figure, as light as smoke, flashed many times in the void, avoided the attack of the sword intent, and stood firm in the air. If one looked carefully, one would notice to one's surprise that it was a woman. Her entire body was covered in the glow of the Tao that was like night, her appearance was plain and ordinary, and even her aura was ordinary to the extreme. Even if one were to see her, it would be utterly impossible to leave behind the slightest impression of her. Frost. In the distance, Lin Sun's black eyes became colder and colder, and he judged the identity of the opponent. This peerless emperor-rank assassin from the hidden space world had actually suddenly made a move at this moment, and it was truly too surprising. What was more terrifying was her way of assassination. He was much stronger than the assassin Crane. He appeared without a sound, and suddenly unleashed an extremely terrifying killing Tao. It was extremely terrifying. If it weren't for the abyssal sword cauldron, Lin Sun suspected that he would have been seriously injured at the moment of the assassination. It was even to the extent that even imperial ancestors like Heng Tianxua and Wen Taolu would probably be unable to resist it. "You're finally here." Without any delay, Lin Sun activated the abyssal sword cauldron to suppress frost in the distance. Boom! That world was covered in terrifying light, and divine splendor surged. The moment he attacked, it was a thunderous blow. This time, Lin Sun couldn't tolerate the hidden threat anymore. Otherwise, he would have to be on guard all the time in the future. It couldn't be said that he couldn't eat or sleep in peace, but it was still extremely disgusting. Shuang's expression was calm, but his eyes were solemn. She waved her white hand, and then a black soft sword was drawn out like a divine whip. The soft body of the sword set off a peerless torrent of sword chi, and it was fierce and fierce to the extreme. However, in just an instant, the sword chi was crushed and exploded, and it was utterly unable to resist Lin Sun's attack. Shuang sighed in her heart. The most essential secret of the way of assassination was to give the target the most fatal blow without them being aware of it. It was just like the arrival of the eternal night, and it would swallow the light of the day when it was impossible to guard against it. Once she was exposed, it was equivalent to losing her greatest power. As a supreme emperor assassin, Shuang was naturally well versed in the way of assassination, and she was even more aware that once she was exposed, it was equivalent to losing her strongest means of deterring the target. In a head-on collision, she was bound to fall into a passive and disadvantageous situation. Swoosh! Shuang seemed to be very decisive, and she chose to flee at the first possible moment. The escape technique an assassin like her possessed could be said to be the best in the world. If she was determined to flee, then even a Taoist ancestor couldn't stop her at all. "I'll definitely take your life the next time we meet." As she fled, a wisp of depression couldn't help but surge out from Shuang's heart. This was the first time she'd failed since she'd become an assassin, and it caused her, who'd always been confident, to suffer a blow. The thing that caused her to feel the most frustrated was that she'd already appeared and locked onto Lin Sun's tracks when he left the third immortal imperial city. She'd tracked him all along the way and trudged on for 2 years before finally finding an opportunity to assassinate him in the 9th immortal pass with great difficulty. Who would have imagined that? She'd invested so much time and experience in this assassination, yet she'd actually failed. Shuang's heart shook. At this instant, she suddenly felt a strand of lethal danger. It was also at this instant that Lin Sun executed the Fade Divine ability. When Shuang recovered from her shock, a peerlessly fierce blade of a sword was ceaselessly enlarging in her eyes until it filled her pupils. "I'm finished." At the same time that this thought arose in Shuang's heart, her body had been slashed apart by the abyssal Dao sword, causing a rain of blood to spray while her soul was shattered into powder. The space where her figure resided was drowned by the monstrous sword chi carried by this sword strike, and it emanated rumbling that shook the heavens and the earth. In the distance, the countless cultivators that were alarmed since a long time ago were fiercely shocked by this scene, and they were stunned on the spot while their bodies and minds trembled. What terrifying sword might! In the distance, Lin Sun stood in the air while the scene of Shuang being killed was reflected in his deep and black eyes, yet his heart was completely tranquil. He'd utilized the Fade Divine ability to kill Shuang, and it obviously showed how difficult it was to deal with Shuang. She wasn't inferior to Heng Tianxua, Wen Taolu, and Luotian Tuesday. But Lin Sun felt it was worth it. An open spear was easy to dodge, but a hidden arrow was difficult to guard against. Since ancient times until now, the most terrifying thing was probably those assassins that would suddenly appear out of nowhere. Who dares to be so audacious as to kill in the city? Suddenly, a wave of icy cold and loud shouts resounded, and then all the guards of the city governor's estate flashed over like a black torrent. Lin Sun frowned as he swept the surroundings with his gaze, yet he noticed that it was impossible for him to hide or retreat. Lin Sun. It's actually him again. This fellow, he's simply a scourge. Lin Sun's identity was recognized at the first possible moment, and the faces of the guards of the city governor's estate sank as they frowned. But at the same time, there was faintly a solemn and fearful expression spreading on their faces. A few days ago, the forces of the Wen, Heng, and Luo immortal imperial clans had gathered together in Tai City to deal with Lin Sun, and they'd caused a bloody massacre that shook the entire city. At that time, Lin Sun had revealed a heaven-defying combat strength that caused the entire city to tremble, and he'd slaughtered the experts of the three great imperial clans to the point that rivers of blood flowed, and even the three ancestors of the One Dao were helpless against him. Today, when they saw that it was Lin Sun who'd launched a battle in the city, how could the guards of the city governor's estate not be fearful? An existence that could leave his name on the Xian ranking on the domain battle stele. A heaven-defying figure that could suppress the ancestor of the One Dao, Wen Taolu, head-on with a cultivation at the peak of the 7th level of the martial emperor realm. A legend that had miraculously survived after being heavily besieged in a grand Dao remnant. A series of halos gathered on one person. Even if he'd come from a broken universe like the starry sky ancient path, who would dare to underestimate him in the slightest? The atmosphere in the field was solemn. The guards of the city governor's estate had already sealed off the area like a tide. They were armed with weapons and had a terrifying aura. Even further away, countless cultivators were watching, and all of them were speechless. Yes, they also recognized Lin Sun's identity. Besides being shocked, they couldn't help but sigh with emotion. This ruthless man was simply too good at causing trouble. It was only the first day since he'd returned from the Grand Dao Remnant, and he'd caused such a big commotion. He simply didn't put the city governor's estate in his eyes at all. Lin Sun, last time, it was the city governor who intervened and resolved a crisis for you. Instead of being deeply grateful, you're asking for a mile after being given an inch. Isn't it too lawless? The leader of the guards spoke in a deep voice, and his eyes were cold. I was attacked by the assassins of the Hidden Void Realm, and I was just passively defending before. Lin Sun looked calm. The Hidden Void Realm. These three words seemed as if they possessed a form of magic, and it caused the hearts of all the guards of the city governor's estate to shake while their expressions changed slightly. Even further away, an uproar had already sounded. The Hidden Void World was the most mysterious force of assassins in the eternal true world. They had an incredibly ancient foundation, and over the course of countless years, all those who were targeted by them had never survived. Even the undying Emperor clans wouldn't be willing to provoke the Hidden Space World under normal circumstances. They viewed the Hidden Space World as ferocious beasts, and they were afraid of being unable to avoid it. As far as I know, when the assassins of the Hidden Void Realm make a move, there has never been a survivor. Are you sure what you said is true? The leader of the guards had a gloomy expression. Lin Sun couldn't help but chuckle. Unfortunately, I've already killed 2 assassins from the Hidden Void Realm since I entered the vast thousand battle domains. The previous one was called He, and the current one is called Frost. If you don't believe me, you can go investigate and see if these 2 will appear again in the future. The crowd was in an uproar. All of them revealed expressions of shock and disbelief. Crane. If it was said that this name was only enough to intimidate the great emperors below the 9th realm martial ancestor, then the name Frost was enough to make the ancestor of a Dao feel fear. But now, whether it was he or Frost, both of them had been killed by Lin Sun alone. The meaning behind this was too shocking. Frost actually failed. The leader of the guard's eyes flickered and he gasped. When he looked at Lin Sun again, the fear on his face only increased. After a moment of silence, he said to Lin Sun, "We will investigate this matter thoroughly. But before that, please come with us to the city lord's mansion. As long as we can gather enough evidence to prove that this matter was not caused by you, we will naturally return your freedom." His words could be said to be impeccable. He not only fulfilled his duty, but also showed respect to Lin Sun. From this, it could be seen that he was also extremely afraid of Lin Sun. If it was any other cultivator, they would not have said a word and would have directly rushed forward to suppress him. Lin Sun frowned and said, "I plan to leave Tai City tomorrow. I don't have much time to wait for you to gather evidence. Lin Sun, I advise you not to make things difficult for us. Otherwise, none of us will have a good time," the leader of the guards said with a gloomy face. If Lin Sun insisted on resisting, there was only one choice left: use force. P.S. My mind is stuck. I need to sort out the next plot. Chapter 2607. The oppressive atmosphere was spreading, and the killing intent quietly filled the world like a tide. Although the guards of the governor's mansion looked dignified and extremely afraid, no one flinched. In the final analysis, from the moment they became the guards of the governor's mansion, their fate was no longer in their control. Lin Sun looked as usual, without any emotional fluctuation. He would not give in. Once he entered the governor's mansion, no one knew what he would encounter. But just when Lin Sun was about to speak, a calm voice sounded. "The person who just died is indeed the assassin Shuang from the hidden world of Void." With the voice, Bai Jianchen, whose hair was as white as snow and handsome as a young man, came from a distance. "Greetings, Governor." The guards of the governor's mansion all breathed a sigh of relief. When facing Lin Sun, they were also under great pressure, but the appearance of Bai Jianchen gave them a backbone. "You can all leave, I want to talk to him alone." Bai Jianchen looked at Lin Sun. Immediately, the nearby guards took the order and left. "Let's find a place to have a drink?" Bai Jianchen said. Lin Sun thought about it and nodded. "In a tavern. 2 dishes and a pot of old wine." Lin Sun and Bai Jianchen sat opposite each other. Bai Jianchen personally poured a glass of wine for Lin Sun and said, "Are you leaving tomorrow?" Lin Sun said, "It's time to leave. Otherwise, I'm afraid I will become a disaster that everyone in the governor's mansion will reject." Bai Jianchen couldn't help laughing. He raised his glass and clinked it with Lin Sun. Then he raised his head and drank it up. While tasting the wine in his mouth, he said, "No matter which immortal pass, there are its own rules. But those who can be bound by the rules are generally not ruthless characters. Those who can violate the rules are almost all people with great background. For example, if the strong of the immortal emperor clan killed someone in the city, even the governor of the city would turn a blind eye." Lin Sun raised his eyebrows, not understanding the meaning of Bai Jianchen's words. "I just want to tell you that although you are not from an immortal emperor clan in the eternal world, I can also turn a blind eye." Bai Jianchen smiled. "Of course there is a reason for this, but more importantly, I am not absolutely sure that I can keep you in Tai City." This was a recognition of Lin Sun's combat strength. "Senior, you flatter me," Lin Sun said. Bai Jianchen smiled and said, "I believe in my judgment. In addition, I might as well be frank about tonight's matter. The reason why Shuang dared to make a move was because he got my tacit consent." Lin Sun's pupils shrank, and he looked at Bai Jianchen. Bai Jianchen appeared very calm and said, "As early as a few days ago, when you and Wen Taolu were fighting fiercely in the city, Shuang had already planned to take action. It was I who came forward and suppressed him. Otherwise, this assassination would have happened in advance." Lin Sun frowned. "What about tonight?" Bai Jianchen said with a smile, "It should be a good thing for you to get rid of a potential threat in Tai City." "But what if I'm in trouble?" Lin Sun asked. Bai Jianchen drank a cup of wine and said casually, "If you are in trouble, I can report to someone." Lin became more and more confused. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "Is there anyone else who wants to deal with me besides Shuang? And only if I die will you be able to complete your mission?" Bai Jianchen nodded with a trace of subtle complexity in his eyes and said, "Yes. So, Senior, you also want to deal with me?" Lin Sun asked. There was no joy or anger on his face, or in other words, there was no emotional fluctuation. Bai Jianchen sneered, "If I really want to kill you in Tai City, I can mobilize all the forces of the governor's mansion to set up an inescapable net when Shuang takes action. In that case, you may have some trump cards, but do you think I don't have any?" Lin Sun was silent for a moment and said, "But in my opinion, even if you exhaust all means, it's impossible to keep me here. Even if you use some trump cards that I don't know, or it won't work." Bai Jianchen was stunned and seemed to be a little surprised. He stared at Lin Sun for a while and said with a bitter smile, "So you also saw that I didn't do that at that time. The reason was as I said just now. I didn't have the confidence to win." Lin Sun sighed softly. "In the final analysis, you just gave up the plan to deal with me because you didn't have the confidence, right?" Bai Jianchen nodded and said, "Although I know that this will cause your rejection and hostility, it is a fact after all. I won't hide it." After that, he drank another glass of wine and sighed with emotion, "There is no good thing for no reason in this world. As the governor, there are only two reasons why I am willing to tell you these things. First, I can see that Yuan regards you as a friend and their friendship is not shallow. As for whether there is love between a man and a woman, I can't speculate. But from this point alone, I won't embarrass you too much. Otherwise, I won't intervene in the battle between you and the 3 immortal emperor clans a few days ago. Secondly, you have too many secrets on you that I can't see through. However, all of these are not important. I only know that the power you possess should be stronger than I imagined. If you can survive in the future, you will definitely have great achievements. Making an enemy out of you will only bring more harm than good. Why don't I just tell you everything? Even if you reject me in your heart, at least, you won't hate me when you find out the truth in the future." These words were clear and unambiguous. After listening to this, Lin Sun had to admit that after knowing these, he really couldn't have the idea of becoming enemies with Bai Jianchen again. "Then can you tell me who wants to kill me? And why can't you refuse?" Lin Sun asked. Bai Jianchen sighed and raised his glass. "Let's drink first." Lin Sun didn't ask further and raised his glass to drink with him. Until a jar of wine was drunk, Bai Jianchen suddenly said, "Who do you think can make me so entangled in dealing with you in Tai City? It must be a person that even you don't want to offend." Lin Sun said casually. Bai Jianchen smiled, stood up and said, "It's getting late. I should go. If you can appear in the 7th heaven alive one day, I will invite you to have a drink again." He turned to leave. Lin Sun seemed to guess something and said, "Cloud curtain?" Bai Jianchen stopped and couldn't help laughing. Instead of answering, he changed the topic and said, "There is no good for no reason in the world, and there is no evil for no reason. There must be a reason, but I can't guess it, and I don't want to guess it now. In the future, you'd better ask for the reason yourself." He left straight away. With snow-white hair fluttering, he walked into the dark night. "Senior, it won't be long before the evil god Dishi and the relics of the Tao will break free. You should be careful." Lin Sun got up and watched him leave. Bai Jianchen waved his hand without looking back, indicating that he understood. Until his figure disappeared, Lin Sun sat back in the chair, ordered another pot of wine, and drank by himself. Slowly digesting Bai Jianchen's words, Lin Sun's expression became uncertain. Only then did he realize that there was such a treacherous truth behind Shuang's appearance this time. Is it really him? Lin Sun thought of the scenes when he saw Cloud Curtain at the banquet and carefully recalled his every move at that time. However, he couldn't figure out how he had offended the Zhu Xiong ancestor in the 7th heaven. "I've heard some things about you, and I appreciate you very much. If you encounter any trouble in the future, You can tell me my name. I think I can still play a role in the Kiliakosm battle domain. Remember, my name is Cloud Curtain. The figure and voice of the man in the jade robe seemed to be still in front of him. But Lin soon realized that the seemingly elegant, modest and polite man probably wanted to kill him a long time ago. There is no evil for no reason in this world. There must be a reason. Lin soon thought of what Bai Jianchen said when he left and fell into thought. After a long time, he drank up the wine in the pot and turned away. Cyan Sparrow, help me prepare a document related to Cloud Curtain, the more detailed the better. In the night, Lin Sun walked on the streets of the city with his hands behind his back. How do you know that I know this person? Cyan Sparrow was surprised. This is one of the top 10 emperor ancestors in the 7th heaven. If you don't know about him, it's abnormal. Lin Sun smiled. As he spoke, he walked into a shop. In the relics of the Tao, he harvested a lot of spoils of war and planned to sell all the useless treasures. Okay. Cyan Sparrow agreed. The long night finally passed, and Tai City ushered in a new day. Lin Sun woke up in an inn room and immediately went to the city lord's mansion to hand over the Tao accumulating pearl left by the Emperor Evil Spirit. The guards of the city lord's mansion all looked at Lin Sun with a complicated expression. Their eyes were full of fear and even awe. Last night, after the confirmation of Bai Jianchen, they finally realized that the legendary assassin Shuang from the Hidden Void Realm was really killed by Lin Sun. This also made them dare not neglect Lin Sun at all. Soon, Lin Sun received a talisman to activate the transmission formation and left directly. The road of Emperor was difficult, and the journey of the vast 1,000 battlefields was destined to be very long. For Lin Sun, Tai City was just a pass on this journey. On the next road, he would face countless dangers and challenges. But Lin Sun was not afraid. On the same day, he set off and left. That killer is finally gone. The guards of the city lord's mansion, after watching Lin Sun's figure disappear, could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Immediately, their eyes were filled with emotion. A young man from the starry sky ancient path could make such a big name. If one day he really could reach the eternal world, how dazzling would he be? Lin Sun, those people of the Wen, Heng and Luo families who have not returned from the relics of the Tao must have been wiped out by you, and the disaster that was quelled in the relics of the Tao, is it also related to you? No matter what, I look forward to the day when you reach the eternal world alive. City Lord's mansion, Bai Jianchen muttered to himself, his snow-white hair fluttering in the wind. P.S. There will be an explosion tomorrow. Everyone sit tight, the plot will advance very fast tomorrow. Chapter 2608. In the second year after Lin Sun left Tai City. In the relics of the Great Path, a disaster left from the last era completely broke out. On one side of the ancient well, Tai's sword was broken inch by inch, and the sound of wailing resounded through the universe and surged in the starry sky. In the ancient well, a mighty figure with scraggly hair and covered with black shackles of order climbed out. As soon as he appeared, his pressure swept through the entire ancient relic. Countless evil spirits, corpses, blood all turned into tide-like torrents of power and were swallowed up by the mighty figure. In the end, the relics of the Great Path, which was comparable to a large world, also cracked and burst into pieces, completely turning into dust and disappearing from the world. On this day, evil god Tishi emerged from the suppression of endless years. On the same day, the 9th immortal pass fell into a bloody turmoil. The starry sky was dyed red, and countless stars exploded. No one expected that after evil god Tishi was born, his ferocious power was so great that with a raise of his hand, he could burn down stars and crush the sky. This was a catastrophe that plunged the people into misery and suffering. Some people speculated that this evil god, who had been sealed as early as the last era, had already transcended the ancestor realm. As for how powerful he was, no one knew. Tai City was in a precarious situation. Even if Bai Jianchen activated the power of prohibition that covered the whole city, he could only hold on for less than 2 hours before all the barriers were smashed by evil god Tishi with one slap. The huge Tai city was completely defenseless. Seeing that the 9th Immortal Pass was about to be destroyed, a group of terrifying figures from the eternal world came together and fought with evil god Tishi in the starry sky. These were the reinforcements invited by Bai Jianchen. As early as a year ago, when Lin Sun and the others returned from the trial, he had been preparing for this. From that day on, sand and stones were flying, the wind was howling, and blood filled the sky. The battle in the starry sky was fierce, and from time to time, broken stars fell down dyed with blood. This situation lasted for 3 years, and no one could get close. An ancestor tried to collect the blood of evil god and rashly entered the edge of the battle area. As a result, he was turned into ashes in an instant. Because this battle had long surpassed the level of the ancestor realm. It was an unprecedented contest on the immortal path. Even Bai Jianchen was not qualified to participate. 3 years later, blood flowed like rivers and dyed the universe red. Tai City was in pieces and turned into ruins that floated in the void. The undying figures who had always participated in the battle suffered great losses in this battle. 5 of them fell in succession, corpse blood scattering everywhere, star domains pierced through. Many immortal Tao soldiers and incredible secret treasures collided and shattered violently in the battle, causing that part of the starry sky to sink 3 years. The outcome of this terrifying battle was unpredictable. Legend has it that evil god Tishi was dismembered into more than 10 pieces and sealed away by undying beings. There were also rumors that evil god Tishi didn't die, only suffering serious injuries in the final moments. His original body had long fled, going into hiding. But what was certain was that Tai City had been destroyed and the 9th Immortal Heaven Pass had completely disappeared from the Great Thousand Battle Domain. After 3 years of battle, the path from the 8th to the 9th level of the Undying Realm was completely severed. It was a scene of desolation. This news shook the entire Great Thousand Battle Domains. When he heard the news, Lin Sun's heart involuntarily rolled. Tai City was destroyed, evil god Tishi's life and death were unknown, the 9th Immortal Heavenly Pass became the dust of history. But at that time, just how many living beings were affected and lost their lives in this disaster? Lin Sun didn't feel any emotions. He continued on his journey towards the eternal true world. Time passed, 1 year after another. In the vast Great Thousand Battle Domains, Lin Sun walked alone, passing through one dangerous battlefield after another, entering one immortal heaven pass after another. He passed through mountains of corpses and seas of blood, crawled through endless piles of corpses, and experienced the tempering of life and death. He was like a peerless heavenly sword, shining brilliantly and extremely sharp, hidden in its scabbard. Over these years, outside the 18th Immortal Heaven Pass, he had once welcomed a great tribulation for breaking through, triggering an unusual phenomenon in the world. In the end, after 7 days and 7 nights of struggle, he stepped into the 8th level of the Emperor Realm, Tao Fusing Realm. Tao Fusing Realm. He had fused the various great Taos into his body. If it was said that the 5,000-plus grand Tao laws Lin Sun grasped were numerous brilliant and translucent pearls, then fusing the Tao was to use his own cultivation as a thread to string these pearls together, and it formed a perfect necklace of pearls that was like a perfect whole. After that, Lin Sun experienced all sorts of bloodshed and slaughter, spending another year to completely consolidate this realm. Over these years, Lin Sun fought continuously, becoming a peerless, ruthless person that many people's expressions changed when they spoke of him, because he had killed far too many opponents. Now, as long as he appeared, he didn't need to say his name. When he saw the abyssal sword cauldron floating above his head, his identity would be seen through, and his enemies would flee in panic. And in the immortal heaven passes that he passed through, there was a wanted poster of him hanging in front of every city gate. Be it the ranking or the bounty, he was ranked first. Song Fuxing, who was originally first, had already become second at the same time. This also caused a great commotion. Every time Lin Sun entered the immortal heaven pass, he had to hide himself and change his identity, or else he would be dealt with by the city lord's mansion. There were also some people who believed themselves to be powerful that made a move, wanting to kill him and create a legend. However, all of them failed without exception. Instead, it made Lin Sun's reputation grow, and he forged a near undefeatable bloody battle record. If it wasn't for the vast 1,000 battle domains rarely having immortals, there would have been people who would have come to kill him. Even so, Lin Sun still encountered many dangers. It wasn't man-made, but when he was hurrying through some incomparably dangerous battlefields, he encountered many strange and ominous calamities, and almost all of them were related to things left behind from the previous era. Many times, he even had to use the forbidden passing divine ability, the Nirvana Flame of Order, and other trump cards to resolve the danger. But correspondingly, every experience was a rare kind of tempering and baptism. Not only did it temper his cultivation, it also strengthened Lin Sun's state of mind. Moreover, he also obtained many opportunities and treasures along the way, and his wealth was already immeasurable. In the 9th year after leaving Tai City, Lin Sun moved forward in a cold universe, and from time to time, he could see corpses floating in the starry field, and the blood had long solidified. After so many years of tempering, there were countless corpses under his feet, and he used blood to build the road ahead, causing his entire temperament to be tempered and settled. When he didn't move, he was like an abyss, and his Tao was unfathomable. When he moved, he was like a ruler, and his sharpness pierced through the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Not long ago, he encountered a sneak attack from a Tao ancestor, and with just his own battle strength and the abyssal sword cauldron, he completely killed the Tao ancestor. This was a great change, and a magnificent feat that broke through the natural moat. The Emperor ancestor was like a natural moat that suppressed the Emperor realm, and could not be crossed. But now, Lin Sun no longer needed to rely on his trump card to surpass it. Not only did he resist, but he also suppressed and killed. If this matter were to spread, it would definitely shock the world, and innumerable old monsters would be terrified. But for Lin Sun, all this was natural and logical. After all, he was now in the middle stage of the 8th stage of the Emperor realm, and after so many years of killing and battles, his battle strength had already undergone countless transformations. Even the abyssal sword cauldron had undergone subtle changes after being bathed in Emperor blood over the years. It's been 9 years. Lin Sun appeared alone on an ancient star, and sat cross-legged. A vast sandstorm swept past, and his hair was messed up. He was very relaxed, and he took out a wine gourd to drink, enjoying a rare trace of peace alone. On the path of seeking the great Tao, he could not get rid of loneliness and solitude. All these years, he had walked alone, fought alone, resisted all the bloodshed and slaughter alone, sat quietly alone, drank alone. If he counted carefully, it had been a total of 13 years since he entered the beginning city of the vast 1,000 battle domains. In the time that seemed to pass in the blink of an eye, most of the time was occupied by killing and battle. Other than that, he could only hurry on. 3 cups of wine leads to the great Tao, and 1 battle leads to nature. On this journey, I can only live up to the wine in the gourd. After a long time, Lin Sun smiled and drank up the wine in the gourd. Then, he stood up and disappeared in the wind and sand with a lonely figure. He once again embarked on his journey. This was a vigorous and glorious path, but it was also a lonely and dangerous path. Since ancient times, countless heroes from the vast 1,000 battle domains had fought here, but there was less than 1 in 1,000 who could reach the eternal world alive. Along the way, Lin Sun was fearless. He fought all his enemies, observed all the skills in the world, and walked alone. He got rid of all the luxuries and returned to simplicity. When he was tired, he would sit quietly in the void, and then stand up and continue forward. 18 years later. In a universe filled with a sacred aura, a path paved by countless stars stretched to the end like a divine rainbow. This path is called the 100,000 Star Path. At the end is the 49th Immortal Pass. A group of dazzling figures appeared. When they saw the dazzling starlight on the path, excitement appeared on their faces. They were a group of people who had traveled through the vast 1,000 battle domains for many years. They had gone through countless hardships and bloodshed, and they had finally arrived alive. The 100,000 Star Path leads to the sky. Now we finally have the chance to head to the eternal world. In the blink of an eye, we have drunk all the vicissitudes of life. In the future, we will definitely reach the Immortal Pass. These figures sighed with emotion. Their auras were terrifying, and they walked straight up the 100,000 Star Path. They could not hide the anticipation and excitement on their faces. Unknowingly, waves of deafening Tao sounds rang out on the 100,000 Star Path. They sounded like the chanting of scriptures, like the lectures of ancient gods. They were filled with wisdom and made people wake up. In front of them, the starlight was like water. It was brilliant and bright, and it was accompanied by mysterious and hazy clouds. It was as if they had arrived at an immortal city. When they saw the outline of the city, everyone was stunned. Because the city was called Chaotian. It was the 49th Immortal Pass of the vast 1,000 battle domains, the final barrier to the eternal world. Chapter 2609. Starlight shone, and divine light shone in all directions. At the end of the 100,000 Star Road was an ancient city that was grand and magnificent. It far surpassed any city they had seen before, and it was the final stage. It looked as if it was forged from divine gold. It shone with a cold luster, and there was a faint layer of dark red light that looked like specks of blood. According to legends, this was the Emperor's blood that flowed when powerful warriors died in ancient battles, and there was even the blood of immortal beings. Of course, it had long since dried up and lost all of its essence, or else this city would have been filled with murderous intent and unapproachable. The huge city gate tower was tens of thousands of feet tall. Even the ancient giant spirit race could pass through it. It was grand and majestic, and it exuded an intimidating pressure. This was a pair of gates that were forged from Star River divine sand mixed with immortal matter. It was shocking. This was Chaotian City. Since ancient times until now, it was a place that countless cultivators had dreamed of reaching. It was rumored that Chaotian City was like a fairy. As long as one reached this place, they would have the chance to ascend to the eternal true world. At that moment, many figures had gathered in front of the magnificent city gate. All of them had powerful auras, and they exuded an extraordinary might. Some were elegant, some were domineering, some were like fairies descending to the mortal world, and some were like rulers patrolling the world. Each of them was so powerful that it made people's hearts tremble. When the group of dazzling and excited figures arrived and saw this scene, their pupils shrank and they calmed down. Since ancient times, all those who could enter the great 1,000 battles realm were terrifying existences above the Emperor realm. And those who could travel from the first immortal barrier to the 49th immortal barrier were the most outstanding and peerless people in the Emperor realm. They were ruthless people who were 1 in 10,000. Everyone, don't worry. Chaotian City is different from other places. Even if you are a demon who has killed countless people, as long as you can reach this place alive, you won't be viewed as an enemy, and you won't be wanted, someone said in a low voice with a calm expression. Since ancient times, there was an iron law in Chaotian City. Not only was killing and conflict forbidden, even the great people from the eternal true world would be suppressed if they violated this iron law. Unlike other immortal barriers, the rules of Chaotian City were not upheld by the city master's mansion, but by a spirit of order. This spirit of order is called Hao Tian. Rumor has it that a long time ago, it came from an eternal god race in the 9th heaven. Over the countless years, Hao Tian had been in charge of the city. He had always been impartial, and would not show favoritism to anyone. Anyone who caused trouble in the city would be severely punished immediately. That's right. Even if we meet an enemy with a blood feud, they wouldn't dare to make a move in this city. It is said that a great figure from an immortal emperor clan in the seventh heaven was killed by Hao Tian on the spot because he made a move in the city without authorization. Amidst the sounds of discussion, all of these cultivators that had just arrived relaxed. Quickly look, Song Fuxing is here. A voice suddenly rang out near the city gate, causing a commotion. The crowd raised their heads and saw a white-robed man with long flowing hair leisurely walking over from afar. A 7-inch golden coffin floated above his head. At a glance, this person's entire body was suffused with an oppressive and arrogant aura, and he possessed a domineering aura of supremacy. Many people had strange looks on their faces. In the past 8,000 years, Song Fuxing's name had resounded in the skies of the vast thousand battle domains. He had once been the first on the wanted list, and countless immortal experts had died in his hand. But until now, no one could do anything to him. Firstly, it was because his combat power was extremely terrifying. He was at the peak of the 8th level of the perfect Emperor realm. Secondly, it was because his whereabouts were elusive and he rarely appeared. Originally, everyone thought that he had already left the vast thousand battle domains for the eternal true world. Who would have thought that he would appear in front of Chaotian City today? Only when Song Fuxing's figure disappeared into the city gate did someone say with a smile, "This guy is too bold. This is Chaotian City after all." Even those immortal emperor clans that put a bounty on his head wouldn't dare to make a move in this city. This is the reason why he's so fearless. Someone explained softly. Song Fuxing, who hasn't appeared for a long time, has also come. He's probably here for the battlefield of the gods. Someone had a strange look in his eyes. That must be the case. It's said that in at least 3 to 5 months, and at most 1 year, a door of life will appear in the ruins of the gods that is regarded as the #1 forbidden area. At that time, the legendary battlefield of the gods will also appear. Someone sighed. Recently, Chaotian City had been in a state of chaos. Who knew how many peerless and tyrannical people were waiting for the battlefield of the gods to appear? In fact, there were even many overlords from the eternal true world who wanted to join in and seize the serendipity within. It should be known that since ancient times, the ruins of the gods had been regarded as the #1 forbidden area in the vast thousand battle domains. All those who trespassed would die, even if they were immortal existences. And it was rumored that the ruins of the gods contained the supreme treasures of the previous era. When the battlefield of the gods appeared, it also meant that the supreme treasures of the previous era would appear. That was why it was not just the recent period. In the past decade or so, almost all the cultivators who had arrived in Chaotian City had chosen to stay. They resisted the chance to head to the eternal true world directly because they wanted to wait for the battlefield of the gods to appear. At that moment, Chaotian City was filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Any random person on the street might be a peerless and ruthless person who had hidden his strength well. In fact, some of the old antiques who had lived for an unknown number of years had disregarded their dignity and wanted to join in and fight for this serendipity. That can't be the man with the blade, right? Suddenly, someone asked in surprise and bewilderment. Many people near the city gate looked over and saw a man wearing a bamboo hat. His entire body was filled with an obscure aura of primal chaos, and his face could not be seen clearly. They could only see a rusty blade on his back. When the people looked over, they felt an inexplicable chill in their hearts. They could sense the dangerous aura spreading out from the man with the bamboo hat. The man with the bamboo hat soon disappeared. But the sounds of discussion had already risen in the area. "It's definitely him, the most mysterious man with the blade on the wanted list. I didn't expect that he would also appear. I can't imagine how many terrifying and tyrannical figures will participate in the battlefield of gods." Their voices were mixed with emotion. It's strange that Lin Sun, who ranks first on the wanted list, hasn't appeared yet. Could it be that he has died? Someone suddenly said. Lin Sun. The atmosphere in the vicinity of the city gate suddenly became deathly silent, and the hearts of those cultivators roiled. In the current Great Thousand Battle domain, this name represented the most legendary Great Emperor Juqi, a peerless and ruthless person who would cause a stir whenever he was mentioned. There were simply too many bloody events that he had single-handedly created. By now, everyone in the entire vast thousand battle domains knew about him. How could such a terrifying figure die? Someone's eyes flickered. But I heard that recently, there have been many voices in the city saying that if Lin Sun dares to appear in the battlefield of gods, he will be beheaded. Someone disagreed. Many people have said such words, but isn't Lin Sun still living well? No, the one who said it this time is Great Emperor from the seventh heaven. He's the leader of the younger generation. Nan Tianjing? That's right. There was a sudden silence. Nan Tianjing actually said that he wanted to kill Lin Sun? This made people unable to remain calm. In the current Chaotian city, Nan Tianjing was definitely one of the most dazzling peerless great emperors among the immortal emperor clans. He came from the Nan family, an imperial clan that controlled the 8th grade of the heaven rank. He had a cultivation base at the peak of the 8th grade and possessed a heaven-defying bloodline. His foundation was incomparably terrifying. It was said that even someone like the emperor ancestor was not taken seriously by Nan Tianjing. Perhaps it was impossible to determine who was stronger between him and Lin Sun in a head-on battle, but there was no doubt that Nan Tianjing's background and identity were enough to pose a fatal threat to Lin Sun. Why is that? Someone couldn't help but ask. Who knows? How can the thoughts of those immortal emperor clans be figured out so easily? Haha, as far as I know, there are definitely many people who want to kill Lin Sun. Who told him to kill so many people along the way? If heaven wants him dead, it will make him mad. A thin man who looked like a Confucian scholar sneered, taking pleasure in Lin Sun's misfortune. At this moment, an indifferent voice sounded from the 100,000 star path. Do you regard me as an enemy? These words drifted over lightly, but the meaning behind them caused everyone present to stop talking and look over. A tall figure in moon-white clothes walked over from afar, as if he was taking an idle stroll in his own courtyard. His black hair fluttered while he seemed indifferent and extraordinary, and he held an azure-skinned wine gourd in his hand. Moreover, he had a lazy bearing and was carefree like a wisp of an idle cloud. He obviously didn't have any power, but when they saw him appear, the scene was silent and everyone's eyes widened. Many people couldn't help but reveal a wisp of fear on their faces. The Confucian scholar's face also changed, and he immediately realized something. He sneered. I didn't expect that Lin Sun could reach Chaotian City alive. It's really disappointing. This man was naturally Lin Sun. After 18 years of fighting and trekking since leaving Tai City, he finally arrived in front of Chaotian City. Moreover, he didn't hide his identity and appearance. We are outside the city, not inside. Aren't you afraid that I will kill you? Lin Sun looked at the Confucian scholar with his deep black eyes and took a step forward. The Confucian scholar's body stiffened. What are you going to do? He was just like a frightened rabbit. With a whoosh, he fled into the magnificent city gate which was thousands of meters high. Why are you running? Lin Sun laughed, with a hint of ridicule. There was a burst of laughter near the city gate. The Confucian scholar's cheeks suddenly turned red, and he was so ashamed and resentful that he wanted to find a hole to hide in. P.S. Send 2 chapters first, and there will be 2 more chapters in the evening. The plot is advancing too fast, and the writing is very slow. Don't worry. Chapter 26:10. The laughter was ear-piercing. The performance of the Confucian scholar was too unbearable. Before this, he was ridiculing and laughing at Lin Sun, but when Lin Sun appeared, he suddenly became timid, which was simply disgraceful. Lin Sun, just you wait. I'll spread the news that you've arrived in Chaotian City. The Confucian scholar's eyes were filled with resentment. After saying this, he turned around and disappeared into the city gate. Everyone outside the city gate looked at each other. This was equivalent to completely offending Lin Sun. Wasn't this guy afraid of death? Lin Sun smiled and ignored him. He looked at the city gate, where a mysterious totem of a purple sun in the sky was imprinted with immortal mist, and it was filled with traces of immortal aura. This totem represented the power of a spirit of order, named Haotian. It had been in Chaotian City for a long time, maintaining the rules of the city. At this moment, as Lin Sun looked over, the body of the white-clothed girl Wu Shuang, who was silent in the Nirvana order inside the abyssal sword cauldron, trembled imperceptibly, as if she had sensed something. Almost at the same time, above the city gate, the totem representing the will of Haotian suddenly emerged, a terrifying fluctuation of order. A violet sun seemed as if it was about to charge out from within the celestial mist. But with the circulation of the Nirvana order, the white-clothed girl Wu Shuang suddenly fell into silence again, and the power of order of Haotian also dissipated. This scene made Lin Sun raise his eyebrows. He vaguely felt that Haotian should be the same as Wu Shuang. It couldn't be said to have wisdom, but it could operate and use its own power of order. In other words, both of them were the embodiment of the rules of order, like a spirit body. However, Lin Sun couldn't tell which one was stronger, Haotian or Wu Shuang. After all, one was a spirit born in the order of heaven in the last era. The other was said to be a spirit of order left by an eternal god in the ninth heaven. It was really difficult to determine the reason for the difference in power between the two. Brother Lin, are you also going to the relics of the gods this time? Someone couldn't help but come forward to greet him. Although they didn't know each other, they were polite and respectful. Lin Sun nodded. If the time is right, I won't miss it. Seeing Lin Sun's easygoing attitude, many people nearby came up to him. Strong people were born to be admired, not to mention that Lin Sun was not an ordinary strong man. Taoist Lin, can you tell me about the battle in the 36th Immortal Pass? Did you really kill all the Luo family experts in the City Lord's mansion? Someone asked curiously. Lin Sun was stunned and said with a smile, whether I did it or not, Luo family has regarded me as the culprit. That was 8 years ago. He had trudged all the way to the 36th pass of the Imperishable. However, on the very day he entered the City Lord's mansion had mobilized all of its forces to hunt him down. The reason was that the person in charge of the City Lord's mansion was an emperor ancestor of the Luo clan, Luo Yunfeng. At the same time, he was Luo Ling's fifth uncle. This encirclement had obviously been premeditated for a long time, and it was meticulously laid out. It was layered upon layers of encirclement, and it had even utilized the might of the restriction formation that covered the entire city. At that time, Lin Sun was caught off guard and fell into a dangerous situation. In the end, he had to rely on the Nirvana flame of order to carve out a path of survival. From that day onwards, Lin Sun launched a fierce and cruel counterattack. In just a short 7 days, he had practically bathed the City Lord's mansion in blood. When news of this spread, it immediately caused a stir in the vast 1,000 battle domains. It was only later that Lin Sun found out that Luo Yunfeng was of the same generation as Emperor Nameless, Shi Tiandi, Luo Xingfeng, and the others who had died in the ancient path of Starry Sky. Brother Lin, according to what I know, you have offended many big shots of the immortal emperor clans along the way. Aren't you worried about revenge? Someone asked. This was also what the others did not understand. Because according to what they knew, Lin Sun did not have any great background, but came from a broken place like the ancient path of Starry Sky. They could not understand why he dared to act so recklessly. That's right. Based on the information someone gathered, 16 of the immortal Emperor clans you offended on your way here are from the 6th heaven, and 2 of them are from the 7th heaven. In such a situation, aren't you worried that once you enter the eternal true world, you will become the target of everyone and become the enemy of the entire world? Lin Sun said in surprise, there are actually so many? Along the way, there had been endless slaughter, and he had experienced countless battles and bloodshed. He had never seriously counted how many immortal emperor clans he had offended. The expressions of the surrounding people froze, and they almost rolled their eyes. If someone else had offended so many immortal emperor clans, they would not be able to eat or sleep in peace. But this guy, he did not even take it to heart. Wasn't his courage a little too big, fellow Taoist Lin? I heard that the destruction of Tai Yi City seems to be related to you? Because someone once said with certainty that evil god Dishi released a message on the day he escaped, saying that whoever can provide information about your whereabouts will obtain a fortuitous encounter. Soon, another person asked about a matter that had shaken the vast thousand battles domains. Lin Sun rubbed his brows and said, I am just a small character that has not become an ancestor. How could I cause a storm that led to the destruction of Tai Yi City? This matter was done by Dishi, it has nothing to do with me. A small character that had not become an ancestor? Everyone felt their hearts twitch, and they almost wanted to ridicule him. Although he had not become an ancestor, the number of Dao ancestors that he had killed was not enough? Fellow Taoist Lin, there are many people in this city who have said that if you dare to enter the god's ruins, you will not be able to return. Fellow Taoist Lin, can you tell us about what happened in the 45th Immortal Pass? I heard that a fairy-like immortal empress was mercilessly dismembered into a pile of minced meat by you? Isn't this a little too cruel? Fellow Taoist Lin, all sorts of voices rang out, and they questioned Lin Sun, causing the vicinity of the city gate to become incomparably lively. There was no other way. It was because some of the things that Lin Sun had done in these past few years were too sensational, and they were filled with shock and mysteries. Now that he, the person involved, had appeared, he naturally became the target of questioning. Lin Sun very consciously shut his mouth, and he walked towards the city gate at the first possible moment. He naturally knew the answers to these questions, but there were various reasons, and it was impossible for him to reveal them to the public. His figure had just entered the magnificent city gate that was thousands of meters tall. A cold and indifferent voice resounded, Lin Sun, your doomsday is coming. Lin Sun turned around and looked at a figure that stood within the city gate. This was an extremely handsome man with green hair, and the phenomenon of a myriad of swords appearing in his eyes. Lin Sun was stunned for a moment, and only now did he remember who this person was. Qing Sun Sword Emperor. On the way to the boundless thousand battles domain, Lin Sun had once killed a Realm 9 ancestor with the Taoist name Jin Yen. Moreover, Lin Sun had seen a violet copper mirror among his belongings, and the figure of Qing Sun Sword Emperor had appeared on the screen of light that appeared from it. However, Lin Sun had not expected that Qing Sun Sword Emperor would actually appear in the 49th Immortal Pass. From this, it could be seen that this person's combat strength was definitely extraordinary. You want to avenge your senior brother? Lin Sun asked. The undisguised hatred in Qing Sun Sword Emperor's eyes made him very uncomfortable. Do you think I'm stupid enough to make a move in this city? Qing Sun Sword Emperor's face was expressionless, but his eyes were surging with deep-seated hatred. But I will personally watch you die, unless you don't go to the battlefield of gods. After saying that, he turned around and left. Watching him leave, Lin Sun smiled and did not care. During these years of trekking in the boundless thousand battles domain, who knew how many people wanted to kill him, but in the end Lin Sun was still the one who survived. Let's first find a place to stay, and then find out some information. As he pondered, Lin Sun walked straight towards the city. The buildings of Chaotian City were incomparably ancient, and the atmosphere was solemn. The streets crisscrossed and the layout was grand. What surprised Lin Sun was that the city was extremely lively and prosperous. There were pedestrians everywhere, and it was a noisy scene of endless streams of carriages. After Qin Kei's guidance, he understood that as the last checkpoint in the boundless thousand battles domain, Chaotian City was a hub that connected to the eternal true world. Over countless years, many forces from the eternal true world had settled in this city, and they had set up all sorts of trading companies to buy the various treasures that could only be found in the boundless thousand battles domain. Treasures like the Underworld Pearl and the Tao Accumulation Pearl were also extremely popular cultivation resources in the eternal true world. Apart from that, there were also many immortal emperor clans that had specially set up sects in Chaotian City to stand guard here, so that they could recruit talents as soon as possible. It should be known that all those who could enter the boundless thousand battles domain, experience countless bloodshed and slaughter, and reach the 49th Immortal Pass were all extremely powerful people. This sort of character was bound to shine brilliantly in the eternal true world. If they could recruit him into their forces of power, it would naturally be a deal that would bring them nothing but profit. In fact, there was even a special gathering in Chaotian City to recruit talents called the Dragon Gate Meeting. Some of the powerful people from the boundless thousand battles domain only needed to express their willingness to join a force to cultivate, and their names would appear in the Dragon Gate Meeting. At that time, many of the powerful people from the Immortal Emperor clans would conduct a special auction. Whoever could offer conditions that satisfied these powerful people from the boundless thousand battles domain would be able to recruit these powerful people and have them serve them. In the past, there had even been immortal emperors from the 8th universe who personally recruited talents during the Dragon Gate meeting, and it had caused a great commotion. After understanding this, Lin Sun could not help but sigh. The Dragon Gate meeting had undoubtedly provided the peerless people from the boundless thousand battles domain with a springboard, allowing them to immediately become a member of one of the immortal emperor clans when they reached the eternal true world. Because of this, they would no longer need to wander and explore alone, and they would no longer need to worry about being bullied when they had just arrived and were unfamiliar with the place. On the other hand, obtaining these talents would add new blood to the immortal emperor clans, and it would be enough to make their foundation and forces even stronger. However, Lin Sun also knew that even if his name appeared in the Dragon Gate meeting, there would probably not be many forces who would dare to recruit him. P.S. The third update is here. P.S. Before midnight, if you can't wait, you can read it tomorrow when you wake up. Chapter 26:11. While Lin Sun was sighing with emotion, a kind-looking, sage-like old man came up to him and said with appreciation, "My young friend, I see that your forehead is full and your bones are clear. You are a rare Ziwei treasure image. If you like, I can be your guide and show you the way to immortality." His words were obviously the words of a swindler, but they were spoken with sincerity, and the admiration in his words was evident in his words. Lin Sun was stunned and said, "Okay." The old man smiled happily and said, "Good courage. You seek the great Tao and fight for this sliver of opportunity. Congratulations, you've come across a great opportunity today." "Oh right, what's your name, little friend?" "Lin Sun," said Lin Sun. "Good name. Wait, you said you are Lin Sun?" The old man was about to praise Lin Sun, but he suddenly realized it. His eyes widened, his body stiffened, and the muscles on his face twitched fiercely. "Then, where are you from?" The old man took a deep breath and asked. "Starry Sky Ancient Way," said Lin Sun with a smile. The old man was dumbfounded as if he was struck by lightning. After a while, he said with a hollow smile, "Well, I have something to do. I'll go first." Whoosh! The old man disappeared. Lin Sun couldn't help laughing. This old man was obviously a swindler in this city. He dared to swindle people unscrupulously by relying on the rule of no fighting in the city. Otherwise, he would have been slapped to death countless times by others. Along the way, Lin Sun saw many similar scenes. Some practitioners who had just entered the city were surrounded by some strong people from immortal imperial clans, who invited them warmly and tried to recruit them. But few people came forward to talk with Lin Sun. Even when they recognized his identity, most of them avoided him in fear. When they saw Lin off, they whispered to each other and pointed at his back. Lin Sun didn't care. Before he came to Chaotian City, he had learned some things about this city. He was very clear that even those who hated him to the core would not dare to fight in this city. After wandering for a while and getting familiar with the scene in the city, Lin Sun didn't waste any time. Lin Sun didn't waste any more time and went straight into a business. 15 minutes later, when Lin Sun walked out of the trading firm, most of the spoils he had collected along the way had been exchanged for eternal void source crystals. This was a habit he had developed over the years. Whenever he entered a city, he would sell off all the useless items on him in exchange for Zhou void origin crystals. If he encountered a treasure that was useful to him, he would not hesitate to buy it. Over the 18 years since he left Tai City, the number of Grade 1 Eternal Void Source crystals he possessed had reached an astonishing 1.3 billion. As for the other divine materials, medicinal pills, and treasures, they were piled into mountains and were innumerable. According to Cyan Sparrow's words that were filled with jealousy, the wealth Lin Sun possessed right now could even make many undying beings lower their heads in shame. Then, Lin Sun began to wander in different trading houses in the city, buying all the treasures he saw one by one. In just half a day, Xiao Chun had spent more than 50 million Eternal Void Source crystals. Many merchants treated him as a distinguished guest, and they were extremely enthusiastic. When Lin planned to look for the battle steel in the city, a man in gray mysteriously approached him and whispered, "Fellow Taoism, do you need a list?" "What list?" Lin Sun asked. "The battlefield of the gods is about to open. Don't you want to know how many powerful people will participate this time? I have such a detailed list here. I guarantee that it will help you know yourself and your enemy, and you will not be defeated in 100 battles," the man in gray said with a smile. "I see." Lin Sun immediately understood. In the end, he spent 1,000 Grade 1 Eternal Void Source crystals to buy such a list. After casually flipping through it, Lin Sun could not help but be surprised to find that on this list, just the experts from the eternal world alone occupied 70%. There were as many as 5,000 people. However, it was not difficult to find that although there were many people, most of them came from different immortal emperor forces, and they traveled in groups. Unfortunately, this list only contained some information such as names and identities. It was extremely simple, and did not have much value. However, Lin Sun found many familiar names in this list. For example, Feng Junlin, whose 4 symbols Taoist diagram had been snatched by him, Xiang Xiayuan, Yuduchio, and so on. But most of them only knew of their names, and had never crossed paths with them. The vast 1,000 battle domains was too big, and Lin Sun had been traveling alone all these years. He rarely had the chance to fully understand the peerless people like him, who had experienced countless dangers and finally reached Chaotian City. For example, he only knew of Tsang Fuxing and the man with the blade, who were ranked 2nd and 3rd on the wanted list, but had never seen them. After putting away the list, Lin Sun quickly arrived at the Realm Battle Steel. In the entire vast 1,000 battle domains, there were a total of 9 Realm Battle Steels, and they stood in different immortal passes. The Realm Battle Steel in Chaotian City was the last one. Over countless years, all the powerful people who arrived at this city and were about to head to the Eternal World would go to the Realm Battle Steel to undergo the final test. Some would attempt to charge up the list one last time and leave their name on it. Some had already left their name on the list, intending to test their final ranking in the vast 1,000 battle domains. The Realm Battle Steel that seemed to reach the heavens stood tall, glowing with obscure and mysterious ripples of power. When Lin Sun arrived, There were already many figures gathered in the area, and their auras were all extremely powerful. Some were even terrifying existences at the Emperor-Ancestor level. Even though Lin Sun had already seen many grand scenes, he could not help but be moved when he saw such a scene. The journey here had been extremely difficult and dangerous, and those who could gather here were undoubtedly the top figures on the Emperor Road. Buzz. When Lin Sun arrived, there was a person taking the test in front of the realm battle steel, and he had caused a powerful ripple. A magnificent rain of light fell from the realm battle steel, enveloping that person. What a shocking phenomenon! I never thought that Song Fuxing's first test in 8,000 years would cause such a commotion. He has left his name on the Xian list. Judging from the phenomenon, he should be ranked in the top 300. How terrifying! There was a wave of discussion nearby, and many people had different expressions. Very soon, the ripples on the realm battle steel became silent, and Song Fuxing turned and left. It was also at this moment that Lin Sun could clearly see the other party's appearance, and he could not help but secretly nod in his heart. This person seemed arrogant and aloof, but his aura was extremely tyrannical, far beyond ordinary. Little friend, if you are willing, this old man is willing to hire you as a guest elder of my Nan clan, and I guarantee that I will provide you with cultivation resources for the Emperor-Ancestor level. A hoarse and old voice sounded. It was a silver-haired old man surrounded by many people, and one could tell with a glance that his identity was extraordinary. There was an uproar. The Nan clan, that was a colossus of the seventh heaven, and was far from being comparable to an ordinary immortal emperor clan. For a moment, the gazes of many people towards the silver-haired old man changed, revealing a trace of awe. At this moment, Song Fuxing had undoubtedly become the object of envy for many people. Song Fuxing was startled, and said in surprise, "Senior, aren't you worried that the murderous calamity on a wanted criminal like me will implicate you?" The silver-haired old man smiled slightly. "The troubles on your body are merely a small matter to my Nan clan." Song Fuxing was silent for a moment, then said, "Let's talk about this after I return from the battlefield of gods alive." After speaking, he turned around and left. The silver-robed old man twisted his beard and smiled. "All right, I'll wait for your good news." Suddenly, Song Fuxing stopped, his eyes looking towards Lin Sun, and then revealed a smile. "I didn't expect that you would also come. Although I have never met you, I have heard of your name for a long time. I am looking forward to entering the battlefield of God's ruins." They did not know each other, but he took the initiative to say these words. It was very obvious that in Song Fuxing's heart, Lin Sun was an extremely important person. And at this moment, the people near the domain battle tablet also followed his gaze and saw Lin Sun, instantly causing an uproar. "It's him. I didn't expect him to actually have the guts to appear here. Now I finally see him in person." For a moment, the atmosphere suddenly changed, causing Lin Sun to become the focus of everyone's attention. But at the same time, Lin Sun also noticed that there were many gazes of undisguised hatred falling on him. But when Lin Sun looked over, he found that the owners of those gazes were very unfamiliar. He did not know them at all. He did not care about this. Matters of hatred were very difficult to understand too clearly. He was also too lazy to waste time and effort to find out why the owners of those gazes of hatred were looking at him with hatred. In short, he would just deal with it when it came. Over these years, there was no lack of similar examples among the opponents he had killed. "Humph! You are indeed bold." The silver-haired old man from the Nan clan snorted coldly, not concealing his hostility towards Lin Sun. Seeing this, Lin Sun was puzzled and said, "Old fellow, I have never formed enmity with your Nan clan. What do you mean by this?" The scene was silent, and the atmosphere became tense. Everyone was speechless. They did not expect Lin Sun to be so impolite when facing the silver-haired old man. This was beyond their expectations. The silver-haired old man's face darkened, and he said, Little thing, when you die, perhaps you will understand the answer. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows and could not help but laugh. Old fart, you only know how to talk. I can't be bothered with you. As he spoke, he walked directly towards the domain battle tablet. Now no one was going to take the test, so he caught up and took the lead. Being called an old fart by Lin Sun, the silver-haired old man's face darkened with anger, and his followers nearby were even more furious, scolding Lin Sun one after another. But all of them were ignored by Lin Sun. In this Chaotian city there was no way to fight at all. The other party did not dare to do anything to him, and could only threaten him with words. There was no deterrence at all. Seeing this scene, everyone present looked at each other. This Lin Sun was indeed as unscrupulous as the rumor said. He did not even care about the threat of the Nan family of the Seventh Heaven region. P.S. The fourth update is here. Please ask in advance for a guaranteed monthly ticket on the first day of tomorrow. Chapter 26:12. Many people in the field stared at Lin Sun with murderous eyes, especially the silver-haired old man and his companions. It was as if they wished to cut Lin Sun into pieces. However, this was Chaotian City, where the Supreme Order Haotian was present. No one dared to make a move without permission. Not even the immortal Emperor clan. Therefore, no matter how angry they were, they could only hold it in. Naturally, the ugly look on their faces was unavoidable. In front of the battle steel, Lin Sun didn't care about this. Back when he was in Tai City, he left his name on the Xian ranking during his first test, causing a rare phenomenon that shook the entire city. At that time, his ranking was 918, barely making it into the top 1,000. The reason was that he had obstructed the Realm Battle Steel's investigation of the origin spirit veins, and thus lacked talent. As a result, his ranking was somewhat low. Even so, it still caused a great deal of shock in Tai City. And in front of the second domain battle steel of the 18th Heaven Gate of Immortality, his ranking had already risen to 736. In the third realm test of the 24th Gate of Immortality, his ranking rose to 517th. Just like that, he trudged along the way, passing through the 4th, 5th, 6th domain battle steels. His ranking also continuously rose. When he was tested in front of the 8th realm battle steel at the 42nd Immortal Pass, his ranking was already in the top 100. He was ranked 81st. Of course, Lin Sun had prevented the boundary battle steel from investigating the origin spiritual veins every time the ranking was tested. Otherwise, the ranking would not have been like this. In fact, being able to be ranked in the top 100 of the profound ranking was already enough to shock the world. Because according to the speculation of the world, it was not likely that a character who could enter the top 100 of the Xian list would emerge in thousands of years. Once such an incomparable figure appeared, even the undying giants of the 8th heaven would come personally to recruit him. This was not an exaggeration. The three great rankings of the domain battle steel, just the threshold of the earth ranking, was enough to obstruct countless great emperor figures. On the other hand, the heaven ranking was a ranking that only peerless great emperors competed for. It was extremely rare for great emperors to leave their names on it. As for the Xian list, that was a ranking that only the heaven's prides who had reached the pinnacle of the Tao could compete for. It was a place where only 1 in 10,000 great emperors could leave their name. It could be seen how extraordinary Lin Sun's current ranking was. However, this was only the previous ranking. Now, Lin Sun intended to test how much he could improve his ranking on the Xian list this time. When he stood in front of the domain battle steel, a wave of magnificent and dazzling strange undulations poured down from the domain battle steel like the tide. The entire area was dyed a brilliant and dazzling divine color. Lin Sun's figure was completely submerged by the surging divine light. Everyone nearby couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air, shocked by this scene. He couldn't have already entered the top 500, right? Someone said in shock. A long time ago, they had heard that Lin Sun, the peerless ruthless man, had created a miracle in Tai City and left his name on the sacred and supreme Xian list. However, no one knew exactly what his ranking was. This was because the rankings on the domain battle stele could only be seen by the examinees themselves. However, although he couldn't tell, he could deduce a rough ranking from some clues. For example, he could compare some of the tyrannical figures who had left their names on the Xian list before. The most direct observation was that the higher the rank, the higher the rank, the higher the rank. Top 500? Impossible. In the past years, there was a brilliant 8th perfection great emperor who was ranked 270th on the Xian list. However, the phenomenon caused by that time was not as amazing as this. Some of the older people murmured, their faces filled with shock. Doesn't this mean that Lin Sun's ranking is very likely to be above 270th? There was an uproar in the field, and everyone's expression changed. No, it's very likely to be in the top 100. Suddenly, a vigorous voice sounded, resolute and decisive. Everyone looked up and saw a tall man with messy beard and hair, but his eyes were as cold as lightning. No one knew when he had appeared. He was dressed in a wide-sleeved linen robe, and his figure was strong and majestic like a mountain. Every move he made was like a god who controlled the sun, moon, mountains and rivers, overbearing and majestic. Lu Xiangxue, a great figure of the Lu Xiangxue, an immortal imperial family in the 7th heaven. His status was comparable to that of the silver-haired old man from the Nan family. Everyone in the field was shocked. Lu Xiangxue's words made their scalp numb. Top 100? Lin Sun's cultivation was too heaven-defying. Even the people of the Nan family had a slight change of expression at this moment. They came from the 7th heaven and knew the ranking of the realm battle tablet very well. Therefore, they knew best what it meant to be in the top 100 of the Xian list. Uncle, don't make more enemies for him. Beside the majestic figure of Lu Xiangxue, there was a beautiful and spirited woman, carrying a pair of purple and green sabers on her back. She was valiant and beautiful with a fierce aura. It was Xiang Xiaoyuan. Beside her, Yu Duqiu also nodded. Lu Xiangxue's words changed the way everyone looked at Lin Sun. Haha, what are you afraid of? This man can reach Chaotian City alive. He is not an ordinary person. The stronger he is, the more his opponents will be afraid of him. Lu Xiangxue laughed and glanced at the silver-haired old man and the others intentionally or unintentionally. The silver-haired old man snorted coldly and frowned. Xiaoyuan, when you become fear itself, why should you be afraid of the threat of others? Lu Xiangxue laughed. Back then, your father also came from the vast thousand battles domain. He also killed all the way to Chaotian City. At that time, everyone regarded him as a scourge and caused a lot of hostility. It's no different from this kid's situation. But later you also know that even your mother's heart was captured by him. In the end, Lu Xiangxue's voice had a hint of emotion. Look at it now, even in the 7th heaven, who dares to look down on your father? Xiang Xiaoyuan's eyes showed pride. In her heart, her father had always been the character she admired the most. There was a sudden silence in the field. A man in embroidered clothes had suddenly and soundlessly appeared here. His entire body was coiled by strands of violet-colored laws that seemed like starfire, and they faintly formed into a strange totem that seemed like a violet scepter. The glow of lightning flowed on it, and it was a horrifying sight. When they saw this person, the whole field was silent. Many people's expressions suddenly changed, revealing a look of disbelief. Even people like Lu Xiangxue and the silver-haired old man couldn't help but be moved and surprised. The purple lightning was soaring. This was the clan mark of one of the 10 giants of the 8th heaven, the Fu family. It was rumored that the most precious treasure of the Fu family was a purple lightning rui. It was a congenital immortal Dao weapon born from the origin of order. It was extremely terrifying. No one knew who this man was, but everyone knew that he was from the immortal giant Fu family. Just this alone was enough to make everyone feel awe. At this time, the realm battle steel returned to silence. Lin Sun's test had already ended. But before he left, the man in brocade robe said softly, "Little friend, if you are willing to join my Fu family will help you erase the grievances that happened to you." His words were earth-shattering. Previously, when Song Fuxing was invited by the Nan family, it caused a sensation and made many cultivators envious. At this time, everyone was dumbfounded. Did they hear wrong? The immortal giant of the 8th heaven actually personally invited Lin Sun to join. He didn't care about the troubles and grievances he had. As long as Lin Sun joined, the Fu family would help him erase all of them. This was completely beyond the imagination of all the people present. The atmosphere suddenly became extremely silent, and everyone looked at Lin Sun. There was envy, jealousy, and shock. They had vaguely guessed that Lin Sun's ranking on the Xian list must be in the top 100, which was why the Fu family personally came to see him and invite him. Among the people present, only the silver-haired old man and the other members of the Nan family had ugly expressions. They were depressed, as if they had eaten a dead fly. They had previously scolded and ridiculed Lin Sun, thinking that he was not far from death. Who would have thought that the Fu family would favor Lin Sun? It could be said that a chance to change his fate had appeared in front of Lin Sun. As long as he agreed, the immortal emperor clans he had offended over the years would no longer dare to oppose him. Because behind him stood the Fu family, an immortal giant of the 8th heaven. At this time, Lin Sun couldn't help but be surprised. How could he not know the status and power of the Fu family? It's just that he didn't expect the other party to take the initiative to invite him. After thinking for a moment, Lin Sun cupped his hands and said, "Sorry, I appreciate your kindness, but I am used to being idle, please forgive me." He refused. He actually refused? Everyone present was dumbfounded, not daring to believe their ears. He refused such a great opportunity just like that? Even the silver-haired old man and the others couldn't help but be stunned. They wondered if this kid was stupid and didn't understand what it meant to be able to join the Fu family. Young friend, the Fu family is one of the immortal giants of the 8th heaven. They have a high status and have a great influence in the eternal true world. It can be said that an ordinary person would not have this chance even if they racked their brains. You should think twice. Someone couldn't help but remind Lin Sun, thinking that he didn't understand the influence of the Fu family and didn't know how precious this opportunity was. Yes, although the grudge you have is great to the Fu family, it is just a small matter. It is not an exaggeration to say that if you agree, it is tantamount to changing your fate. You can leap over the dragon's gate and soar into the sky. Many people also gave him advice. Their words were full of praise for the Fu family. The man in embroidered clothes stood there quietly with an indifferent expression, but he was very confident. There were very few people in this world who would refuse such an invitation, because he represented the Fu family. But something unexpected happened. He saw Lin Sun cupping his hands and saying apologetically, "Sorry, I can't agree." He refused again. Everyone wished that they could be in Lin Sun's place and agree. They were anxious and wondered whether Lin Sun had become stupid. Chapter 26:13. The man from the Fu clan was also startled. He was obviously surprised as well. "You're the first person to reject the Fu clan in so many years. Interesting. I hope you can survive the battlefield of the gods." After a while, the man said indifferently, "Of course, you can look for me if you change your mind. I will stay in this city until the battlefield of the gods ends." His voice was still echoing, but he had already disappeared. Instantly there was a sigh. It was as if they felt that Lin Sun's choice was not worth it. The silver-haired old man and the other people from the Nan clan were relieved, and a mocking smile appeared on their faces. Even they did not understand Lin Sun's decision. However, they were happy to see Lin Sun's refusal. "Haha, the battlefield of the gods. At that time, let's see if you can really come back alive, the silver-haired old man said slowly with undisguised killing intent on his face. Lin Sun laughed. Old fart, what do you think will happen if I make a request to the Fu clan that I will join the Fu clan as long as I kill all of you? The silver-haired old man trembled, and his old face was gloomy. I'm just kidding. Look at how scared you are. Aren't the people from the Nan clan too timid? Lin Sun chuckled. The eyes of the people nearby also became strange. Little fart, just you wait. The silver-haired old man was so angry that he almost coughed blood. The blue veins on his forehead twitched, and he turned around and left after saying that. Xiao Yuan, that kid is not bad. Do you want me to use some tricks to matchmake you? Lu Xiangque, who witnessed the scene from afar, could not help but say with a smile. Xiang Xiaoyuan's eyes widened. She was about to say something when Lin Sun walked over from afar. She suddenly panicked and tugged the corner of Lu Xiangque's clothes. She quickly transmitted a message to him. Uncle, if you dare to talk nonsense again, I will definitely complain to my mother when I see her in the future. As she spoke, she greeted him with a smile. Brother Lin, we meet again. I've already said that we will definitely meet again in the boundless thousand battle domains. Yu Duqiu also greeted him. Lin Sun smiled. What should we do when old friends meet again? Yu Duqiu blurted out, we won't go home until we're drunk. Don't be hasty. Let me introduce you. This is my uncle, Lu Xiangque. It's all thanks to my uncle's help that we were able to arrive at Chaotian City in advance. Xiang Xiaoyuan introduced them to Lin. Greetings, senior. Lin Sun cupped his hands. Lu Xiangque laughed heartily and said, You don't have to be so courteous, I've long heard of you. Let's go, I'll arrange a banquet today, let's have a good drink. On the same day, the news that Lin Sun had entered Chaotian City spread like wildfire and attracted a lot of attention. Could it be that this person doesn't know that many great powers in the city have already spoken that so long as he dares to participate in the battlefield of the gods, they'll kill him? Many people were puzzled and thought Lin Sun was too bold. He's stirred up countless storms of blood along the way. Who has ever seen him afraid? In my opinion, he's steeled his heart to participate in the battlefield of gods. Haha, we'll have to see if he can return alive. While the discussion was going on, another piece of heavy news swept through the entire city. Lin Sun's ranking on the Xian list of the domain war steel is in the top 100. One of the 10 great immortal giants, the Fu clan, took the initiative to recruit him. But Lin Sun refused. This news caused a sensation in the entire city and caused an uproar. Even the great immortal emperor clans entrenched in the city were shocked and felt that it was unbelievable. Top 100 of the Xian list. How many years has it been since such a peerless figure appeared? I never thought that such a miracle would appear on Lin Sun. Countless people were shocked. Top 100 of the Xian list. Since ancient times, only a small group of people who stood at the peak of Zhu Ying's Emperor's Road could leave their names on it. Even in the eternal true world, such peerless figures were extremely rare and could be said to be 1 in 10,000. Otherwise, as one of the 10 great immortal giants, why would the Fu clan take the initiative to recruit him? Because only the experts in the top 100 of the Xian list were qualified to be chosen by such an immortal giant force. But he refused. Crazy, this guy is definitely crazy. The Fu clan personally said that they would help him get rid of the grudges on him, but he still refused. If he is not crazy, then what is? Sigh, if I were Lin Sun, I would have agreed a long time ago. Comparing people, it's really frustrating. The city was in an uproar and everyone was discussing this matter. When talking about Lin Sun's ranking, everyone was shocked. When talking about him refusing the Fu clan's recruitment, everyone had an expression of disbelief. Similarly, no one expected that Lin Sun would cause such a commotion on his first day in Chaotian City. Shuyu Tower. It was one of the top restaurants in Chaotian City. In a hall, beautiful maids were like butterflies, serving delicacies one after another. Another maid stood at the side and served tea and wine. Xiangque sat on the main seat and kept toasting with Lin Sun, Xiang Xiaoyuan, and Yu Duqiu. The atmosphere was harmonious as they chatted and laughed. After 3 rounds of wine, 5 dishes were served. Xiangque couldn't hold back his curiosity and asked, "My young friend, may I ask, why did you refuse the Fu clan at that time? Of course, it's okay if it's not convenient for you to say it." Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu also looked at Lin Sun. Lin Sun smiled and drank up the wine in his cup. He said, "Actually, there's nothing to hide. I already have a master a long time ago, so I won't join other forces." Master? Xiangque was deep in thought. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu suddenly came to their senses and remembered the scene in the Tai City's Great Path relic. They also remembered Lin Sun's unimaginably terrifying senior brother, a powerful existence who dared to fight with the evil god Dish in the depths of the Great Path relic. Now they all heard that after evil god Dish escaped, he was besieged by more than 10 immortals and killed several of them. In that battle, Tai City was destroyed and the 9th Immortal Pass was destroyed. Could be imagined how powerful evil god Dish was. In comparison, it could also be seen how powerful Lin Sun's senior brother was. No wonder Brother Lin refused. Yu Duqiu seemed to understand. If even his senior brother was so powerful, how powerful would the sect Lin Sun belong to be? It turns out that in your heart, the position of your master is obviously more important than that of the Fu clan. Not bad, just for this I propose a toast to you. Xiangque smiled and raised his cup to drink with Lin Sun. He knew that Lin Sun was in trouble now, but under such circumstances, he still made the decision to refuse the Fu clan. How many people in the world could have such courage? As someone who had been through it, Xiangque had seen many cultivators from the Kiliakosm battlefield abandon their sects and orthodoxies in order to join an immortal emperor clan. And this showed how rare Lin Sun's action was. Brother Lin, in this case your ranking on the Xian list is really in the top 100? Yu Duqiu asked. Xiang Xiaoyuan teased, "You probably want to ask about Brother Lin's real ranking." Lin Sun also smiled. He could hide this from others, but not from his 2 friends, Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu. However, when he was about to speak, he was interrupted by Xiangque. "My friend, don't leak the ranking. Just keep it in your heart. Otherwise, many people will infer your combat strength through your ranking. It's not wise." These words made Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu realize that they had asked a question they shouldn't. They couldn't help nodding. "Thank you for your advice." Lin Sun also raised his cup and toasted Xiangque. Lu Xiangke drank it up happily. "Brother Lin, this is some information we have collected these days. It records the forces that want to deal with you." Xiang Xiaoyuan said, took out a jade slip and handed it to Lin Sun. "Unfortunately, I don't know why some forces that have no grievances with you threaten to deal with you. But anyway, you have to be careful." Lin Sun narrowed his eyes slightly, took the jade slip and said, "I understand. Just like the Nan clan, I don't understand why they want to deal with you like that. It's too strange," Yu Duqiu said, obviously puzzled. "Lin Sun, it's your first day in Chaotian City. Don't say these disappointing things. Come on, let's continue to drink." Seeing that the atmosphere was a little dull, Xiangque said with a smile, "Yes, this is Chaotian City. No matter who wants to deal with Brother Lin, they dare not do it in the city. What's more, my uncle is here." Xiang Xiaoyuan said with a smile. Xiangque couldn't help laughing and said, "However, I can help you inquire about the news for you and see why those big forces want to deal with you." "Thank you, senior," Lin Sun said with a smile. The banquet didn't end until late at night. Lin Sun found an inn and booked a room. Without a moment's rest, he took out the jade slip given to him by Xiang Xiaoyuan. The jade slip recorded the names of more than a dozen big and small immortal imperial clans. Lin Sun was familiar with most of them, such as the One clan, the Hun clan, the Luo clan, the Zhu clan, and so on. In the 18 years since he left Tai City, he had fought countless battles and inevitably made enemies. These disasters were destined to be unavoidable. He didn't care about this, but to Lin Sun's surprise, there were several forces on this list that had never been enemies before, or even had any interaction with each other at all. These forces all came from the seventh heaven. They were the Nan clan, the Gu clan, the Li clan, and the Chu clan. A total of 4. Xiang Xiaoyuan also specially recorded some information about these 4 immortal imperial clans in the Jade Slip. In the seventh heaven, these 4 immortal imperial clans were also the top forces. It was said that behind them stood another immortal imperial clan, the Dongwang clan. Therefore, they were also called the 4 Eastern Imperial Clans. P.S. On the first day of the month, ask for a guaranteed monthly ticket. In addition, there will definitely be more updates and breakouts this month. Please look forward to it. Chapter 26:14. The 4 Eastern Royal Clans. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes. 4 top immortal emperor clans that controlled the heavenly order were backed by the Dongwang clan, one of the top 10 immortal emperors of the 8th heaven. Lin Sun couldn't help but wonder if all of this was ordered by the Dongwang clan. Lin Sun continued reading. The Jade Slips recorded everything in detail. Even the power of order that the 4 Eastern royal clans controlled, their inherited cultivation methods, their territories, the layout of their clans, and even their most precious treasures were all recorded. Most precious treasures. When he saw the most precious treasures of the 4 Eastern royal clans, Lin Sun's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly realized something and his expression changed. The Nan clan controlled the myriad transformation spear, the Gu clan controlled the god-slaying sword, the Li clan controlled the sky-splitting axe, and the Yun clan controlled the world-destroyer halberd. How could Lin Sun forget the names of these 4 treasures? Back then, when he became an emperor at the peak of Nirvana realm, he faced an unprecedented great tribulation. During the tribulation, he was repeatedly blocked. Among them, there were 4 immortal emperors that came across the starry sky, each holding a part of the will of the 4 treasures. At that time, it was the will of the Master of the Heart that appeared and killed the 4 terrifying existences from the other side of the starry sky one by one. How could Lin Sun forget that scene? He clearly remembered that the Master of the Heart once said that the purpose of the 4 immortal emperors was to stop Lin Sun from becoming an emperor, because in a place like Nirvana realm, becoming an emperor meant that he was likely to embark on the immortal path of supremacy. Immortal path of supremacy, Nirvana realm, eternal tribulation, lone lotus. Lin Sun murmured. For the sake of Nirvana realm, the Master of the Heart waited for eternity. Second brother Zhong Qiu guarded the dark world for countless years. Originally, Lin Sun thought that this great opportunity had something to do with him becoming an emperor. But now it seemed that the core of this opportunity was the immortal path of supremacy. And because this opportunity was too heaven-defying and taboo, it attracted the 4 Eastern royal clans to stop it. One should know that according to the Master of the Heart, even in the starry sky, not many people could set foot on this path. No wonder Lin Sun's dark eyes were deep, and he vaguely understood. This time in Chaotian City, the reason the 4 Dongwang clans wanted to deal with him was probably related to the nirvana of freedom he had obtained. And this fortune was actually the nirvana order that was currently floating within the abyssal sword cauldron. She could foresee that they'd probably seen through his identity a long time ago, and that was why they didn't conceal their killing intent and intended to kill him in the battlefield of the gods. Thinking of this, Lin Sun's face turned cold. The Luo family did it for his talent and the heaven-accessing secret realm. As for the 4 East imperial families, it was clear that they were here for the Nirvana order. Bai Jianchen, the Lord of Tai City, once said that there was no evil without any reason in the world. Now, how could Lin not know that there was another reason why Yun Muzha wanted to kill him at that time? The reason was simple. Yun Muzhou was from the Yun clan, one of the 4 eastern imperial clans. Evidently, this person had already seen through his identity in Tai City. What's more, Lin Sun thought of more things. Was it related to the Cloud Curtain that the forces of the 4 eastern royal clans gathered in Chaotian City? This was not impossible. Who could have imagined that this killing intent was actually related to the rebirth of freedom all those years ago? Understanding this, Lin Sun couldn't help but sigh with emotion. This was the so-called grass snake gray line, hidden for thousands of miles. Putting away the jade slip, he began to meditate with his legs crossed. Whoosh, a rain of light interweaved like a stream of water, covering his tall figure. Mysterious scenes of the great Tao were reflected in the void, and it was a shocking sight. After 18 years of bloody battles and 18 years of dangerous tempering, he was now at the peak of the 8th level of the Emperor Realm and had reached the middle stage of the Emperor Realm. He was only a step away from breaking through to the late stage. At this time, as he ran his cultivation, there was a doppelganger in each of his 5 viscera. Divine light flowed and the sound of Tao resonated. Over the years, Lin Sun had reshaped the origin of the 5 Tao bodies with the Great Way Furnace scripture. Until now, each doppelganger had undergone a new transformation. Lin Sun even faintly felt that if he wanted, these doppelgangers could even have independent wisdom, independent mind and independent cultivation. But Lin Sun finally resisted this impulse. If that was the case, the 5 doppelgangers were destined to become 5 completely different Lin Sun, and their future path would be really unpredictable. After all, if one day, these doppelgangers had conflicts with the great way of the deity in order to seek cultivation, wouldn't they be enemies with themselves? The most terrible thing was that the 5 doppelgangers were born from him and knew his details best. Once some unpredictable changes happened, such a situation would undoubtedly make people shudder. Therefore, Lin Sun didn't choose to change. According to the past practice, he controlled everything of the 5 doppelgangers with the consciousness and will of the deity. This also meant that they were in a relationship of prosperity and loss. Even, as long as Lin Sun's mind moved, the 5 Tao bodies would turn into a force of the origin of the Great Way and merge with his body. While Lin Sun was practicing, in an ancient building in Chaotian City, the lights were brightly lit. This was the place where the Nan family lived. Between the rows of buildings, there were layers of prohibition power. At this moment, in one of the halls, the silver-haired old man who once mocked and threatened Lin Sun in front of the realm battle steel sat on the main seat of the hall, his expression solemn. His name was Nan Yongchang, an emperor ancestor who had lived for tens of thousands of years. For countless years, he had always been in Chaotian City, managing everything related to the vast 1,000 battle domains for the clan. Since everyone is here, this old man will say it directly. The fortune on Lin Sun is something that the Dongwang clan must obtain. In other words, this time, this child must not be allowed to leave the battlefield of the gods alive. The silver-haired man Nan Yongchang's voice was indifferent, his voice resounding through the hall. On the 2 sides of the hall, there were several figures with terrifying auras. They respectively came from the Gu clan, Li clan and Yun clan. Like the Nan clan, they were all backed by the Dongwang clan. The 4 immortal emperor clans were also known as the Dongwang 4 clans. But this child has already caught the attention of the Fu clan. If the Fu clan sends out their forces to protect this child, things will not be good. A charming girl who looked like a young girl spoke. Her skin was white and her eyes were like autumn water. Every movement of hers was amorous. Half of her chest was covered, revealing a large area of snow-white skin. As she spoke, it was unknown how many eyes she attracted. Her name was Gu Banzwang, the person in charge of the Gu clan in Chaotian City. Although she looked like a young girl, she was actually an emperor ancestor old monster who had lived for an unknown period of time. Haha, there's no need to worry about that. The ruins of the gods is the #1 forbidden area in the vast 1,000 battle domains. It has never been opened since ancient times. As long as Lin Sun dares to enter, even the Fu clan will not be able to give him absolute protection. Nan Yongchang laughed. As he spoke, he glared at Gu Banzwang's alluring breasts. He felt his throat dry up. This wasn't because of her alluring beauty. Instead, it was because Gu Banzwang was naturally seductive. She pursued a great Tao that was related to charm. Every movement of hers was able to tug at the heartstrings. If she truly displayed her skills, even the Buddha's heart would sway and he would find it difficult to control himself, let alone the Emperor Ancestor. This B***TCH's skills are getting deeper and deeper. Nan Yongchang took a deep breath and suppressed the hint of lust in his heart. Everyone, this child is Fang Xiyuan's successor. Let's not talk about the master of Fang Xiyuan, who has disappeared without a trace. Fang Xiyuan's successors are all elusive people. Many years ago, when these successors arrived in the eternal true world, they caused a huge storm, a black-robed man said. His voice was low, and each word was like a heavy sword that exuded an intimidating pressure. His words caused many people to narrow their eyes. How could they not know about this? Many years ago, a group of successors from Fang Xiyuan Mountain had arrived in the eternal true world. In less than 9 days, they had slaughtered their way from the first heaven to the sixth heaven. No one could stop them. At that time, because of the appearance of Fang Xiyuan's successor, it caused great panic in the sixth heaven. Many immortal emperor clans viewed them as a scourge, and they panicked. However, to everyone's surprise, all the successors of Fang Xiyuan vanished just like that, and they fell silent. But even so, no one dared to underestimate Fang Xiyuan Mountain anymore. 9 days. They slaughtered their way to the sixth heaven. They were invincible and unstoppable. Many people believed that based on the combat prowess displayed by Fang Xiyuan's successor, it would not be difficult for him to slaughter his way to the seventh heaven. But they had all disappeared, and no one knew where they went. But everyone was sure that when Fang Xiyuan's successor appeared again, he would definitely stir up an unprecedented storm. And as members of the 4 Eastern Imperial clans, the cultivators in the Great Hall knew better than anyone else how terrifying the inheritance of Fang Xiyuan Mountain was. Because a long time ago, their clan had sent out 4 terrifying immortal-level figures to cross the galaxy and head to the ancient path of the galaxy to seize a chance related to the immortal Supreme Road. But in the end they never returned and all of them died. It was said that the one who killed them was the master of Fang Xiyuan. This matter even caused the 4 Eastern Imperial clans to panic. They didn't dare to believe that there would be such a powerful existence on the ancient path of the galaxy. And because of this, the 4 Eastern Imperial clans deeply remembered the name of Fang Xiyuan Mountain. This is Chaotian City, not the ancient path of the galaxy, and it is not the territory of Fang Xiyuan Mountain. Everyone, there is no need to worry about this, Nan Yongqiang said in a low voice. Moreover, don't forget that no matter how strong the successors of Fang Xiyuan Mountain are, the Dongwang clan will deal with them. We only need to seize the chance from Lin Sun. Dongwang clan. Mentioning these 3 words was like a towering mountain, pressing down on the hearts of everyone present. The order to kill Lin Sun and seize his fortune came from the hands of the Dongwang clan. This made it impossible for the 4 immortal emperor clans to refuse.